You've mastered the lightning magic, and you tell me I'm in a bizarre world? Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction. So don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 26 Before Departure. After Liu Lazy finished discussing the city's affairs, the sun was already setting in the west, almost sinking into the lake. He knew nothing about commerce. The only thing the entire escort agency could boast about was its martial prowess. After some discussion, the wealthy merchants ultimately pushed Liu Lazy to the forefront. The reason was simple: even though Liu Lazy knew nothing, he was currently the most popular figure in the city. Sometimes, a boss doesn't need to know everything, he just needs to know how to manage people. On the other hand, corpse retrieval, which was originally the city's largest business, had quietly declined due to the disappearance of the river god. The wealthy merchants probably sensed that Qingzhou City would soon become a true land of plenty. They were right next to Shuzhou, which was suffering from famine. No one had come yet, but what if those starving ghosts went mad and attacked Qingzhou? What would they do with their own servants? Or with the currently inactive government? Obviously, neither was reliable. It would be better to rely on Liu Lazy's intimidating staff. Putting everything else aside, Liu Lazy was undeniably a formidable fighter. Liu Lazy was also pleased. After a wasted life, he had suddenly become the local tyrant of Qingzhou City. His future was sure to improve. He still had to thank the Taoist priest. When Liu Lazy arrived at the courtyard, he saw the Taoist priest and the girl in colorful clothes sitting in the main courtyard. "Congratulations, Chief Escort Liu," Zuo Chen said with a smile. "I wouldn't dare." Liu Lazy immediately fawned over Zuo Chen. "If it weren't for you, I'd probably still be stuck in the courtyard." Zuo Chen smiled. He hadn't just randomly chosen Liu Lazy. His key observation technique revealed something unique about him. Although Liu Lazy possessed a fierce and menacing aura, he also had a profound sense of chivalry. He was the kind of person who took money to do things, and none of his subordinates had suffered unjust deaths. In this world, he was already considered a decent person. At least it's better than someone like Su Fuge, who's shrouded in resentment. Straightening his expression, Zuo Chen said, "After a while, find a few good swimmers, take some ropes and bamboo baskets, and dive into the lake. There's a lot of valuables buried in the very center of the lake, things by Leo who has thrown into it over the years. You can retrieve them, dry them in the sun for 7 days, and they'll be usable." There really are these things in the center of the lake? Money doesn't just dissolve in water, and nothing in the river would spend it, so it's naturally accumulated. Zuo Chen said, "You can keep some for yourself, but I hope you spend most of this money on the people of Qingzhou City, not on yourself. The lightness skill I taught you also requires a peaceful mind. Taking treasures and gifts is fine, and you should be rewarded for your labor, but if you ultimately follow Su Fuge's old path, then what is promised to you will naturally leave you." Liu Lazy's face was serious. After remembering all this, he wanted to bow to Zuo Chen. But a simple bow felt insufficient, and prostrating himself would likely be unacceptable to the Taoist. After much deliberation, Liu Lazy finally thought of the children and teachers at the private school in the north of the city. He performed a comical, less than perfect disciple's salute based on his memory. Zuo Chen accepted it. "Tomorrow I will be leaving with Kie, so today I must ask you for a good drink." "Taoist, you're leaving tomorrow? Aren't you going to stay a few more days?" Liu Lazy was shocked, completely unprepared for the Taoist's departure. "I came down the mountain mainly to seek Taoist skills," Zuo Chen sighed. "I came to Qingzhou City because I heard that Elder Bai was skilled, but upon arriving, I found him to be a corrupting influence. I planned to head north to find the immortal you mentioned. With your skills, even if there really is an immortal in the north, I'm afraid she can't teach you anything." "Not necessarily." Zuo Chen thought of the wondrous methods recorded in the Jade Pendant, which were indeed the methods of cultivators, and quite profound at that. Seeing that he couldn't persuade Zuo Chen to stay, Liu Lazy added a few more words of advice. "You might find me long-winded, but I still have to say a few more. If you're heading north, you'll definitely pass through Shuzhou. There's a severe famine there, the roads are full of refugees and bandits, and even the big iron pots are simmering with babies. 9 out of 10 roadside inns you encounter sell rice and meat. That road is difficult to travel, so please be careful." "I understand," Zuo Chen nodded, keeping these words in mind. At the border of Qingzhou City, the road was clear. A short distance ahead was the border between Qingzhou and Xuzhou. Armored soldiers stood guard at the pass, armed with spears and bows. They weren't imperial soldiers, but rather soldiers privately raised by Prince Shou. They weren't guarding the pass against foreign bandits, but rather against the starving ghosts of Xuzhou. Hungry ghosts are slow runners. At this pass, all that's needed is a volley of arrows in the morning to kill the ghosts that escaped last night, and another volley at night to kill the ghosts that escaped during the day. That would be enough to complete the task, allowing one to go home and kill fish and eat meat. Today, a nobleman arrived on the official road beside the pass. An old servant led a fine horse, which pulled a carriage. Beside the carriage stood maids scattering flowers from a basket. The nobleman sat inside the carriage. They lingered there, as if waiting for someone. The soldiers dared not approach, nor drive them away, but stood at the pass watching them until noon. Finally, a fast horse arrived from the direction of Qingzhou. The horse reached the carriage, and a handsome young man dismounted. He carried a large bag wrapped in oilcloth on his back and quickly walked to the carriage, kneeling on one knee. "Grandfather, I've brought the sword out for you." Young Master Zhao took the large bag off his back, carefully untied the cloth strips binding it, and handed it to the carriage. The carriage door swung open with a bang, revealing a dark interior where no one could be seen. The guards felt the temperature drop several degrees and shivered involuntarily. Young Master Zhao felt as if an invisible force was gripping the sword in his hand. He released the sword and flew into the carriage. After about 4 or 5 breaths, an aged sigh came from inside the carriage. "A treasured sword, truly a treasured sword. This sword alone could easily be in the top 10 of the divine weapon ranking, no, in the top 5. If we present this knife to Prince Shou, we'll have a better chance of conquering the world." The old man in the carriage sighed several times, but finally muttered, "It's a pity that the killing intent on this knife is too weak. It seems we'll have to sacrifice a few people to it later, otherwise it won't be able to unleash its full power." "Grandfather, do you like this knife?" A few beads of sweat rolled down Zhao Gongzi's forehead. He smiled and asked cautiously. "Not bad," the old man said. "Although your attempt to seize Bai Shou Lake failed, your sword will be a reward when you return to the clan." Upon receiving this approval, young Master Zhao beamed. He then stood up, a hint of worry in his voice, and said, "Grandfather, I told you through a message that a young lady from a powerful family in Qingzhou has appeared out of nowhere. It was she who ruined my plans. I secretly had someone glance at her, but we didn't recognize her at all. It's all right," the old man scoffed. "Who knows which powerful family is behind it? These days, all the princes are vying for power, and the underworld is a chaotic mess. It's probably just some random shrimp jumping around." "Random shrimp jumping around? The river god is a real demon. What random shrimp jumping around could possibly destroy the river god?" Young Master Zhao hesitated, ultimately swallowing his words. "It's not a big problem. If the sky falls, Prince Shou will bear it first, then my grandfather will. It won't fall on me." Chapter 27 Village outside the city. Before leaving Qingzhou City, Liu Lazy handed Zuo Chen a stack of silver notes. "Taoist Master, I don't have any special treasures here, but you'll need some ordinary things to travel the world. These silver notes should be enough for you to reach Xioner in the north." As Liu Lazy handed over the silver notes, he wanted to hold Zuo Chen's hand, but then, afraid that his hands, which had been used to killing people while escorting goods, would soil Zuo Chen's palms, he pulled his fingertips back. Only after Zuo Chen took the silver notes did he smile awkwardly, his old face slightly red. "Thank you, Chief Escort." Zuo Chen put the silver notes in his bamboo basket and accepted his kindness with a smile. Liu Lazy was finally relieved. After packing his things, Zuo Chen left the escort agency with his bamboo basket on his back as the daylight was still bright. Kie, who had been greedily eating the chicken legs that Liu Lazy had prepared for them at the farewell banquet, hurriedly tore off a chicken leg and followed Zuo Chen when she saw that he was about to leave. Zuo Chen glanced at the chicken leg in Kie's hand. "Is it good?" Kie felt a little embarrassed upon hearing this. "Taoist Master, if I learn your skills, Do I need to abstain from grains and only eat mountain fruits and drink tree dew? A few black lines appeared on Zuo Chen's forehead. Look at me these past few days, eating only fruit and drinking the northwest wind while feasting with you. So what do you mean? If you want one, give me one too. Kie. Is this the Taoist master's personality? Then, should I give this one to you? No need, you keep it and eat it. Zuo Chen politely declined. Oh. Kie nodded, lowering her head to gnaw on her chicken leg. After several bites, noticing that Zuo Chen was still watching her, her expression turned slightly awkward. She coughed twice and composed herself. Taoist master, where should we go first? Directly to the border crossing? Now, the border crossing from Qingzhou to Shuzhou doesn't require an ultimatum. Liu Lazy said before that if you leave through the Qingzhou border crossing, the guards will laugh for a long time, thinking that Qingzhou has lost a mouth to feed. Returning will be troublesome, even bribing them won't get you through the border crossing. You'll have to go through the deep mountains. Don't go to the border crossing yet, Zuo Chen said. There's a village ahead along this road. The young man I rescued is there. Taoist master? You don't really want that young farmer to repay your kindness, do you? Kie exclaimed in shock, holding her chicken leg. He probably can't even produce a silver note. What else is on your mind besides banknotes and food? Zuo Chen pressed his forehead, regretting taking Kie with him. When I saw him that day, I could see some ghostly aura on him. That aura didn't come from the ghost village from that day, so I thought I'd go find him to check after things were settled. Kie wanted to say that everyone has ghostly aura these days, but then she remembered the young man's reckless actions and remained silent, obediently gnawing on her chicken leg. The young man had called himself Wang Ernyu, the second son of Widow Sun from Wangjia village outside the city. Wangjia village was one of the largest villages outside Qingzhou city, and its location was easy to find by asking around in Qingzhou city. Without using the shrinking earth technique, Zuo Chen and Kie strolled leisurely around Qingzhou city as if on a picnic. After leaving the city gate and walking along the official road, Kie started complaining of foot pain after an hour and a half, so Zuo Chen took her to a nearby tea house to rest. After receiving the coins, the tea house owner quickly brewed 2 pots of inferior tea. Kie wasn't particularly discerning, and Zuo Chen had no opinion on the quality of tea either. The two drank happily, ordering some awful meat as well, and chatted as they ate. The tricks I learned before were all low-class moves from street troops and acrobatic shows. I wonder if you've ever heard of the profession of magician? The old man who taught me was a magician. Kie recounted her past over tea. I have no father or mother. That old man said I sprang from a stone, but I didn't believe him. He wasn't very capable, and he just gave me a random name. He didn't have a surname, so he couldn't pass it on to me. He just called me a magician. At first, I wanted to call me Red Robe, but Red Robe also implies a vengeful ghost, which I felt was inappropriate, so I changed it to Kie. After deciding on my name, he taught me fire, bean, pill, and robe, basically, fire breathing, moon offering pill, soybean pill, and immortal rope. But I'm a carefree person, and in the end, I only learned fire breathing and soybean pill. I only knew the principles of offering pill and immortal rope, but I couldn't use them. What about your master? Zuo Chen asked. He's not dead. He ran away. Kie said this with a sullen expression. Maybe he thought I was skilled enough, or maybe he thought I was too lazy to be taught. A few years ago, he ran away, even taking the silver with him. After saying this, Kie was a little depressed. Back then, I performed like crazy and got 3 taels of silver ingots, but when I woke up the next day, not a single copper coin was left. Without continuing on this matter, Kie changed the subject. Taoist, what could possibly happen in Wangjia village? I'm not yet able to know the will of heaven and understand all things. Instead of guessing, I'd rather go and see for myself. After their conversation, the two men took out small scissors and cut a small piece of valuables from the silver coin, handing it to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper weighed the coin on a small scale and immediately beamed with joy, saying, "You two are on your way to Wangjia village, huh? You'd better be careful. There have been strange things happening in that village lately." Strange things? What strange things? Zuo Chen asked. Would you like to tell me, shopkeeper? Since there aren't many customers besides you two, I'll tell you a few more words. The shopkeeper was clearly a chatterbox. Seeing that Zuo Chen wanted to ask questions, he immediately launched into a long explanation. Wangjia village doesn't have a very long history. It started with an old farmer surnamed Wang who opened a farm near the city. Later, he married, had children, and his children married and had more children. With so many children, they bought cattle, and the farmland grew larger and larger, and the number of people with the surname Wang increased. The Wang family house became the Wang family courtyard, then the Wang family mansion, and finally, old Wang died. Little Wang and his grandson planted 2 trees in front of the house, and that's how Wangjia village came to be. Being near the city, the village naturally had a lot of interaction with the city. Sometimes, the villagers would take some grain and meat into the city to sell, and bring back some small trinkets for the villagers. Day after day, Wangjia village lived a relatively stable life. But recently, very few people from Wangjia village have come out. I'm doing business on the outskirts of the city, he said. Normally, people from the village would stop by my place to rest, but lately, very few people have come out from there. I'm superstitious, so I sent my brave little waiter to inquire. He went, and returned that very afternoon, terrified. He said, a while ago, a monk came to the village, practicing vegetarianism and chanting Buddhist scriptures, and he helped the village chief with a ritual. Then the monk went into the mountains, and no one has seen him come out since. A few days later, in the middle of the night, someone in a cassock knocked on the village chief's door. The village chief thought it was the monk returning and was about to open the door when the amulet he had been given suddenly broke. He sensed something was wrong and hid inside all night. Until the next morning, old dog Wang next door was bitten to death by something. His guts were ripped open. Gentlemen, please vote. I'll kowtow to you both. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Wang Family Village. Master, that shopkeeper was talking in a really weird way, it's creepy. Kai said with some worry. The shopkeeper's storytelling was so vivid, he sounded like a storyteller who had gone astray. His vivid description had scared her a bit. She usually avoided places like this unless someone offered her money or there was treasure there. But a village probably didn't have much money, and a small, run-down place like this was unlikely to have any treasure. For Kai, living a thankless life meant one thing: retreat, retreat, retreat. With me with you, what are you afraid of? Zuo Chen glanced at Kai, who gave an awkward smile. My skills aren't quite there yet. I've already guided you to open your true essence key. Even if you only set aside 4 hours each day to circulate your key according to the method I gave you, you'll accumulate a considerable amount of key in a short time. When you start casting spells, all those people in King's House City combined won't be a match for you. What are you afraid of? Zuo Chen stared at her, slacking off. No, no. Kai immediately shook her head and chuckled, it's just that my key accumulation isn't fast. There's no such thing as a fast path in cultivation. Your key is insufficient right now, so you can't establish your foundation yet. Just aim for 2 or 3 years to train. Kai nodded in agreement, but the worry on her face still lingered. The two walked on like this, and it wasn't until the sun was almost setting behind the mountainside that they saw a village not far away. Just by looking at it, one could tell that the village had indeed changed recently. A thick fence surrounded the village, with sharpened wooden spikes and tightly bound with vines, as if to keep out anything that might walk on the ground. The main gate of the village was a tightly sealed gate made of wooden planks and rivets. In the light of the setting sun, 3 cracks were clearly visible on the gate, extending outwards from the top. These 3 cracks all ran diagonally from the upper left to the lower right corner, their edges reflecting a scarlet red and stained with something resembling mud. Upon closer inspection, a strong, fishy stench emanated from them. Zuo Chen stared at the wooden door for a moment. He could clearly see wisps of demonic energy emanating from the 3 cracks. Reaching the gate, he saw no one on either side. Although he could have crossed over the fence, Zuo Chen still reached out and knocked on the wooden door. Fellow villagers, is anyone home? Fellow villagers? They knocked on the door several times, but there was no response from the village. Kai leaned against the door and peeked inside, when suddenly 3 strong men leaped out of the nearby bushes with a shout. Some carried machetes, some axes, and one wielded a pitchfork with ferocious force, charging towards Zuo Chen and his companion. Where did this bandit leader come from? Are you trying to harm our village? These villagers, with their menacing manner, looked more like ghosts in the twilight. Zuo Chen was both amused and exasperated. He deflected the axe with his left hand, and the machete with his right. Finally, facing the pitchfork, he hesitated for a moment, then stretched out his foot, kicking the man wielding the pitchfork back 5 or 6 steps. The 3 strong men were terrified. This is troublesome. Where's Erniu? Erniu, come quick. We're about to get beaten up. Zuo Chen sighed and said to the 3 men, I didn't mean any harm. But you 3 jumped out and attacked us first. We don't believe it. We're smart. You coming to our village at this time clearly means you have bad intentions. The one holding the pitchfork shouted again, wait for Erniu to come over. Erniu can fight, he even swung a millstone. Erniu will definitely help us beat you up. Help you beat up who? The villager had just finished speaking when he heard a deep voice behind him. Turning around, he saw a young man standing behind them, holding a rolling pin covered in dough. Erniu, you're here. Help us teach him a lesson. This man is plotting against our village. The villagers hurriedly gathered around Erniu, but Erniu glared at him fiercely, picked up the stick, and smacked him on the buttocks. What are you talking about, you little brat? Ouch! The villager's buttocks stung from the beating, and tears streamed down his face. Erniu, why did you hit me? Wang Erniu completely ignored the villager and quickly walked to Zuo Chen's side, bowing deeply to him with great enthusiasm. Long time no see. Taoist master. The villagers looked at each other, completely bewildered as to why Wang Erniu, the most capable man in their village, would bow to such a wild Taoist. Erniu also sensed the thoughts of these roughnecks in his village and immediately turned around and cursed. This Taoist master is the master who saved me back in the ghost village. You bunch of bastards disrespected him and deserved to be beaten. If you dare to say another word, I'll chop off your heads. Hearing Erniu's words, the villagers all shrank back. Before, when Erniu returned from the ghost village, he had told the villagers that he had encountered a deity who had used magic to save him. The villagers were initially intrigued, imagining this deity to be a venerable immortal with a long, white beard reaching his knees. But upon seeing him today, they were astonished to find him so young. He looked even younger than a child. Such a small kid, could he really possess such power? Nonsense. The villagers thought to themselves, but dared not show any disrespect. They looked down on the young Taoist priest, but respected Erniu, for no other reason than that Erniu truly would fight them to the death. What's wrong with those guys? Why do they look so agitated? Zuo Chen asked. Hearing Zuo Chen's question, Wang Erniu sighed deeply. Taoist, you don't know, but a beast has come to our village. It preys on our livestock, and after killing them, it eats the people who raise them. For the past month or so, the village has been plagued by evil spirits. We've spent money to ward off the misfortune, and even holding a feast to appease the spirits hasn't worked. 4 days ago, I went to the ghost village to run errands for the Bailao Way, a local religious organization. Actually, my main goal was to get the person in charge to put in a good word for me after I finished that business, so they could send some experts from the Bailao Way. But it didn't work out. If you hadn't passed by, I probably would have died there too. What kind of thing has been bothering your village for so long? Zuo Chen asked curiously. A dead monk. Erniu saw that the sun had completely sunk below the mountains, and darkness enveloped the village in all directions. Dark shadows darted through the surrounding forest, and he shivered. Let's not gather at the village entrance yet. Who knows where the beast is watching? I'll take you to see the village chief first. He's smarter than me, and his words are more logical. If possible, I'd also like to hope you can stay overnight in my village and help us figure out how to deal with that bald monk. Chapter 29 The Poor Monk. By the time Wang Erniu led Zuo Chen and the others to the village chief's courtyard, it was completely dark. Many torches were lit throughout the village, illuminating the entire place even on the first night. Only the road was deserted. Zuo Chen looked around, his gaze sweeping over the neighboring houses, and could see the eyes peering out from behind them. Those eyes belonged to the villagers, filled with fear and unease. Upon reaching the village chief's courtyard, Erniu stopped first. Taoist master, could you please wait outside for a moment, young lady? I'll go in and call the village chief. He sighed. Ever since that beast befell the village chief, he's been completely distraught. If I bring strangers in directly, I'm afraid he'll be terrified and start screaming. Having received Zuo Chen's permission, Wang Erniu then entered the house. Once Wang Erniu's voice faded, Kie approached Zuo Chen and whispered, "Taoist Master, there's something I've been wanting to ask you." "Go ahead." "This village doesn't seem to have much money, and they're unlikely to get any treasures. If you say you want to save people, but people are dying every day, you can't save everyone like this. Aren't you a bit?" Kie ultimately didn't utter the words thankless effort. After asking Zuo Chen, Kie immediately shrank back, like a turtle, waiting for his reprimand. She expected Zuo Chen to immediately put on a stern face and then spout some Confucian sayings like "be the first to worry about the world's troubles and the last to enjoy its pleasures," or "if you don't relieve suffering, how can you save the world," to lecture her. But Zuo Chen just smiled and said, "Guess? Kie?" What kind of answer was that? Zuo Chen chuckled and didn't continue. He was doing this mainly for the sake of merit. Zuo Chen's cultivation of Taoist arts is currently lacking, his progress on the mountain was incomplete, so he descended to seek supernatural powers. However, he hasn't been completely without records of Taoist arts. The Shanking Thunder Law Division, which controls the punishment of thunder, must act with righteousness and integrity. This means that the more merit he accumulates, the better the thunder magic will be. It is precisely for this reason that he meddles in other people's business. Seeing that Zuo Chen remained silent, Kie, unsure why, pondered for a moment, then abandoned further thought and moved on to the next topic. "Then why did you take me as your disciple, Taoist Master? Do I have some kind of talent?" Kie's eyes brightened. Since childhood, she had enjoyed listening to storytellers speak of various destined individuals, and fantasized about one day transforming herself into a person riding on others' necks. Could it be that she really did possess some hidden talent that she herself was unaware of? Zuo Chen looked at Kie, lost in thought. "Kie? Taoist Master, please say something. I'm scared when you don't speak. First of all, you're not my apprentice yet, at most you're just a nominal disciple. Secondly, because you're good-looking? I need someone to run errands, but I don't want some burly brute." Zuo Chen's tone was very hesitant. "Kie? Taoist Master. Do you have to be so honest? Think about it carefully, is there nothing about me that makes you notice me?" Zuo Chen hesitated, as if facing a major and difficult choice in his life. Damn it, so infuriating. Wang Erniu also came out of the house, interrupting the two's conversation. Behind him was a trembling old man who kept looking back after stepping out of the courtyard. If it weren't for Wang Erniu, he probably would have run back to his inner room long ago. "This must be the immortal Taoist Master, please come in, please come in." If other people's "please come in" was somewhat polite, then this village chief's was a complete plea. Without lingering in the courtyard, the group entered the house. Upon entering the not-so-spacious main house, the old village chief quickly closed the door. Only after the wooden door separated the inside from the outside did he let out a long sigh, his face showing a mixture of tears and smiles. "Master, I've heard everything from Erniu. You're a capable man, please save our village. If that beast keeps causing trouble, in a month or two, there might be no one left in the village." The village chief pulled out a chair and invited Zuo Chen to sit down. After Zuo Chen sat down, he asked, "Tell me what kind of disaster has befallen your village? Whether you can handle it depends on the situation. It's all my fault for trying to save money by hiring a random monk from the roadside, which has caused so much trouble." The village chief sighed and began to recount the cause and effect. "My old man passed away recently. He was a devout Buddhist, and thanks to Buddha's blessings, he passed away in his 80s. He had never had any serious illnesses. When it came time for his uncoffining, I thought I'd find some master monks to perform rituals for him. That would show how devout my old man was, and it would make my family look good. But when I went to the nearby Anming temple with my money, I was shocked. A day's ritual would cost 50 taels of silver. And this was just delivering the talisman paper. They didn't even come to our door in person. 50 taels of silver. Even in our wealthy village, that's more than my family's annual income. I was embarrassed at the time, and the young monks in the temple laughed at me, calling me a poor ghost. I was so angry that I left. It just so happened that a poor monk was passing through our village that day, so I thought I'd have him preside over the ceremony. He didn't want any money, just a bowl of plain porridge and some pickled vegetables. He really did a great job of performing the ceremony for my old man. After it was over, he was leaving, so I asked him where he was going. He only said he was going up the mountain, and once he got up there, he never came down again. The old village chief recounted his encounter with the monk to Zuo Chen, and what happened afterward was exactly the same as what the shopkeeper by the roadside had told him. That night, a dark figure draped in a cassock knocked on the village chief's door. The village chief, frightened, didn't go out, and the next day, his neighbor was murdered. However, this wasn't the end of it. The dark figure didn't leave, and the entire village was harassed for a full month. Every night, a door would be knocked on, and looking out a window, all that could be seen was the dark figure in the cassock. If the door wasn't opened, livestock would be slaughtered, pigs, cows, horses. Some villagers, unable to bear the thought of their property being taken, prepared weapons in advance and opened their doors at night. Then, the next day, the entire household would be disemboweled and their limbs severed. Over time, the village became filled with fear, and no one dared to go out. After listening to the village chief's account, Zuo Chen frowned slightly. Was someone given some kind of curse? It sounds really eerie. After a moment's thought, Zuo Chen decided he had to see what was knocking on the door. Village chief, how many households are left in the village? There were originally 72 households, 6 were killed, and 27 went to their mothers' homes in the city for refuge. The village chief counted on his fingers, and Kie answered first, there are 39 households left. 39 households. Focusing his spiritual energy, Zuo Chen surveyed the surroundings, memorizing the locations of all the remaining people. He walked to the door, pushed it open, and under the village chief's worried and frightened gaze, Zuo Chen went into the yard and rummaged around. By the light of the oil lamp in the room, he found a foxtail grass. Using the flower blooming technique he had learned before, Zuo Chen gently blew on the foxtail grass in his hand. Go! He shook out the foxtail grass, and the tiny green granules attached to it instantly flew towards the door beams of the remaining 39 households in the village, plunging into the ground with a whoosh. Immediately afterward, a small foxtail grass sprouted rapidly from the soil, swaying in the wind. Having done all this, Zuo Chen returned to his house. Go and rest first. Tonight I'll see who's responsible for this mess. The village chief's eyes widened. That's it? Chapter 30. Don't go out after dark. It was too dark, and the village chief's eyesight wasn't very good, so he couldn't see clearly what Zuo Chen had done. After hearing Zuo Chen say it was settled, the village chief looked puzzled. Taoist master, don't you need to prepare anything else? Like, build a platform out of wood? Burn incense and perform rituals? If we really encounter something we can't beat, I might set up an altar. Zuo Chen said sincerely. The village chief was speechless at Zuo Chen's words. Village chief, you should go back inside and rest. I trust the Taoist master, he's incredibly skilled. If that beast comes again, he can kill it with a single slap. Wang Erniu patted his chest to vouch for the village chief, who then hesitantly nodded and prepared to go inside. Before going inside, he glanced at the oil lamp that had been burning all night, and a pained expression appeared on his face as he thought about how it would have to burn all night. After the village chief went into the inner room, Wang Erniu cautiously approached Zuo Chen. Master, are you really confident? I'll definitely find it, but we'll have to see how it goes when we fight it. Although the demonic aura in the village was very faint, Zuo Chen felt that it contained a strange sensation. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, only that it felt clear and transparent. It was always best to be cautious, and he had to test this unfamiliar demonic aura first. It was already quite dark, so Wang Erniu naturally couldn't go out at this time. He asked the old village chief for a blanket and planned to keep watch with Zuo Chen. Aren't you going back to be with your family? The elderly who are left alone at home have all gathered together and are now staying in the village ancestral hall. Many able-bodied men are guarding it there. My mother is also in the ancestral hall, it's safer there. After hearing Wang Erniu's words, Zuo Chen finally understood why Wang Erniu dared to wander around outside without going home. Kie was also initially very enthusiastic and volunteered to help with the defense. However, after the three of them sat in the room for an hour, Kie's eyelids began to droop. 2 hours later, she was completely slumped over the table, lost in a sea of sleep. Zuo Chen glanced at Kie and noticed that her internal energy was indeed flowing as he had taught her, and he rubbed his forehead slightly. Cultivating while sleeping, this talent was truly absurd and wondrous. Focusing his mind, Zuo Chen channeled his energy into the foxtail grass he had blown out, and instantly his senses were extended to an enormous distance. He could feel the wind blowing through the village from the mountains, and he could also feel the whistling of the livestock in the courtyard. The entire village seemed normal, like many ordinary villages, quietly waiting for the sun. The moon hung in the treetops, illuminating half the village, when suddenly a gust of wind blew, bringing in patches of dark clouds that obscured the moonlight. Zuo Chen abruptly opened his eyes. It's here. Zuo Chen immediately got up and walked towards the door. Wang Erniu, who had been drowsy beside him, also snapped out of his daze and immediately grabbed the rolling pin he had taken earlier. The two pushed open the door and walked out into the night. Only then did Kie, still half asleep, suddenly wake up with a snot bubble. Hey, Taoist, where are you going? Wait for me. Ever since the disaster struck the village, most of the families on the outskirts had evacuated. Those without support temporarily stayed in neighbors' houses, herding their livestock into their yards, tying them with ropes, and settling in temporarily. Staying close to the village edge was too dangerous. No one wanted to be killed without even a scream, so naturally, they had to find ways to escape the disaster. Currently, those living on the outermost edge were either young, strong men armed with weapons or slow-witted, brutes who didn't believe in ghosts or gods. Suda was one of them. He was one of the few outsiders in the village, who enjoyed drinking and eating beans. When boasting, he always claimed to have a connection with Sufuga from the city. The villagers didn't entirely believe him, but they dared not disbelieve him either. After all the recent troubles, he didn't avoid or hide. He somehow got hold of a clasp-handled knife, chopped it down on a tree stump outside his door, and yelled, "Anyone who dares touch my livestock, I'll chop them down." He didn't even move his house. Whether it was because he was too ruthless, or because the knife really worked, houses closer to the village suffered damage, but his remained unscathed. As time went on, Suda even began to believe he might possess some inexplicable ability, and his behavior became increasingly reckless. Tonight was a prime example. During the day, he helped villagers who were afraid to leave their homes by delivering some supplies and handling some farm work. He took a string of meat and a pot of wine. When he got home, he stir-fried some soybeans, hung the meat to dry, and then drank and ate soybeans from afternoon until sunset. He got completely drunk, went into his bedroom, and slept like a log. He was half asleep when he was suddenly awakened by a series of crackling sounds outside, followed by his dog barking incessantly. Suda, still drunk, flung open the window and yelled, "You motherfucker! You bastard! You disturbed my sleep!" Immediately after, he heard the dog whimper once, then silence. He was furious, woken up in the middle of the night by the dog. His bladder was throbbing, and he felt the urge to urinate. There was a chamber pot in the room, but after thinking about it, Suda decided to go outside and relieve himself in the outhouse. He'd been suffering from a fever lately, his urine was dark and smelled strongly, and it was still dark. Lighting an oil lamp would be too much trouble. If he misjudged the chamber pot and ended up urinating everywhere, he wouldn't be able to stay in the house all night. Pushing open the door, a gust of wind rushed towards him, carrying a foul, fishy smell. He sniffed and felt nauseous, almost vomiting. What's that stench? Feeling uncomfortable and bloated, he quickened his pace, heading towards the outhouse. Just as he reached the door, he noticed his dog lying motionless on the ground not far away. "You damn dog, you were barking just now, and now you're slacking off, you're such a bastard." Suda cursed, sauntering over to his dog and kicking it. However, contrary to his expectations, the dog didn't get up as usual, but cowered timidly to one side. His kick landed squarely on the dog's head. The dog's head spun around, and he was kicked flying. Suda then noticed dog blood and intestines spilling onto the ground. The wind blew down the back of his neck again, sending a chill down his spine. He stiffly looked back, and only then, in the dim moonlight obscured by dark clouds, did he see a figure in a monk's robe standing behind him, its features indistinct. Only a dark shadow remained, staring intently at him. Chapter 31 The Robed Bear. Upon seeing the dark figure, Suda broke out in a cold sweat. The figure was wearing a monk's robe. Wasn't this the troublemaker who had been causing havoc in the village these past few days? He had been so arrogant, brandishing a knife and shouting, thinking he was brave enough to slice off someone's head in one fell swoop. But now, seeing him in person, Suda felt his arms and legs tremble. His previous courage vanished completely, utterly useless. His breathing became rapid, his hair stood on end, and goosebumps rose layer after layer. Just standing there, Suda could feel the stench of the ground rushing towards him. His eyes darted around, and he saw his knife stuck in a wooden stump a good distance away. He'd probably have to leap and run to get to the stump. His heart pounded with fear, and he knew that if he cowered there without a weapon, he would surely die. "You son of a bitch. You bald bastard, you killed my dog." Perhaps out of fear, or perhaps because his dog was dead, Suda, filled with dread, suddenly felt a surge of nameless rage. He let out a low growl and took 3 steps at a time, heading straight for the ring-hilted broadsword. The dark figure there seemed to be intimidated by Suda, freezing in place for a moment. Reaching the edge of the blade, Suda reached out and gripped the hilt, pulling upwards with one hand, but couldn't pull it out. He then leaped onto a wooden stump, gripping the hilt with both hands. "Hey!" His face flushed red, he exerted every ounce of strength he could muster, and with a clang, the broadsword was finally pulled out. After drawing his knife, Suda felt a surge of wild joy. His courage and confidence returned, and he roared at the dark figure, "You bandit leader, take this." His angry shout seemed to embolden the wind, a gust of wind blowing behind him, dispelling the dark clouds that had obscured the half-moon. However, when Suda finally saw the bandit leader's face, he was utterly terrified. Before him was no monk. It was clearly a black bear. The bear wore a tattered, blood-stained robe, its fur black, with a white patch on its head. Red blood dripped from its sharp claws, and it stood upright, its legs supporting its weight. It stood motionless, its eyes fixed on Suda. Suda truly hadn't expected that the villagers' repeated use of the word beast, which he had assumed was an adjective, would actually be a descriptive phrase. What terrified Suda most about the black bear were its eyes. They looked remarkably human. Facing a black bear, Suda immediately felt fear. The old hunters passed down the saying, "Man kills with a knife, bear with a bow." But even if Suda were given a bow now, he felt he probably couldn't kill the black bear. Wearing a robe and walking upright, it was clearly a monster. How could a human possibly kill a monster? His courage waned, and the dark clouds pressed down again, making it difficult for Suda to even see the shadowy figure before him. He felt a foul-smelling wind approaching him, and in his panic, he swung his knife haphazardly. In the pitch black, how could he possibly hit anything? Suda only felt a sharp blade reaching towards his neck, and he thought, "Oh no." He closed his eyes and awaited death. But the expected pain didn't occur. Suda heard a crackling sound of thunder beside him, followed by the painful roars and howls of a wild beast. And there was the aroma of roasted meat. When he opened his eyes again, he found that the black bear was half charred, but still alive, wearing a complete cassock, and was scrambling towards the forest. Beside him, a Taoist priest had appeared out of nowhere. Under the clear breeze and bright moon, the Taoist's palm was crackling with milky white lightning. Suda's legs went weak, and he sat down on the ground with a thud. When he came to his senses, he found that his pants were wet. Staring blankly at the Taoist, he then noticed that Wang Erniu was standing behind the Taoist, holding a rolling pin. He asked, "Erniu, what's this?" "This is our Taoist priest. The Taoist priest helped us kill the beast." Erniu had just witnessed Zuo Chen's move. He only saw a white light flash in Zuo Chen's palm, and then the beast began to crawl around on the ground. Where had this supernatural power ever been seen by a farmer? He immediately took Zuo Chen for a god descended to earth. Zuo Chen, however, frowned slightly as he stared at his palm. "Taoist master? What's wrong?" Kie asked in a low voice, leaning closer to Zuo Chen. Zuo Chen didn't answer. The feeling of that slap just now was off. He had used the shanking Five Thunder Technique, specifically for fighting demons and ghosts, yet that slap hadn't killed the bear. It wasn't because the bear was particularly powerful, but because of the uniqueness of its kasaya. Others might not notice, but to Zuo Chen, the tattered kasaya radiated golden light, the aura of merit. Moreover, the bear also possessed righteous merit. This was strange. It had killed and stolen, where did it get any merit? Thunder magic loses some of its power when it encounters someone who is inherently righteous, and the kasaya and its own unique characteristics further reduced the power of the thunder magic by 99%. This resulted in the bear being 95% dead, with only 50% alive. "Erniu, you stay here with him. Kie, come with me into the mountains to catch the bear." After saying that, Zuo Chen and Kie went straight into the forest. The two moved swiftly and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Only Wang Erniu and Suda were left behind, dumbfounded. "Erniu, is this the Taoist priest you were talking about?" Suda asked, dumbfounded. "Yes. Suda stared at the direction Zuo Chen had left for a long time. You've really found a powerful immortal. After being hit by Zuo Chen's palm, the wild bear was barely clinging to life. Even if it used its last bit of energy to run for its life, it had no chance of escaping Zuo Chen and Kai's pursuit. It stumbled and twisted through the forest, finally lowering its body and rushing into a cave not far away. Zuo Chen and Kai followed closely behind and soon stood at the cave entrance. Upon arriving, Kai sniffed and immediately gagged twice. What a pungent, fishy smell. Zuo Chen plucked a white wildflower from a nearby leaf, placed it in his palm, and blew towards the cave entrance. Wildflowers sprouted layer upon layer from beneath his feet. They rapidly spread into the cave, and then Kai heard a mournful howl from within. Afterward, all was silent. Once this was done, the two entered the cave. Stepping over the wildflowers, Kai surveyed the cave by moonlight, discovering various skeletons piled on the ground, animals and humans. Reaching the deepest part, the shadow of a human-like black bear lay on its side. The cave above its head wasn't completely sealed off. Milky moonlight streamed down like pillars. Falling on it and on the shimmering petals on its fur, the power of the lightning magic was reduced, but his other cultivation levels remained unaffected. The half-dead Kasaya bear was actually killed by Zuo Chen's breath. Chapter 32 Merit Relics. Zuo Chen approached the dead bear, gazing down at it. The bear wasn't large, only about 1.8 meters tall when standing, thin, with a short nose and arms hanging limply. For a moment, it was difficult to tell whether it was a bear or a human. Taoist, could this bear be the monk in disguise? Kai also approached the black bear, breaking off a small stick from the ground and poking at the dead animal. Her gaze kept drifting to the bear's paws. These paws are covered in too much fierce and terrifying energy. Eating them will harm your cultivation. It's better to burn them. Kai's voice betrayed her disappointment. Zuo Chen sighed. Bear gall is fine. I'll try to extract it later, then go back to the village and get a pot of wine to soak it. Kai immediately broke into a silly, innocent grin, drool dripping from her mouth. Ignoring the gluttonous cat clowning around, Zuo Chen first grabbed the robe with one hand and pulled it off. Once it landed in his hand, Zuo Chen realized that this kasaya wasn't some fine silk robe, but rather a tattered garment stitched together with numerous patches. It lacked any luxurious feel, its only redeeming quality being its thickness, providing shelter from the wind and rain. A flash of inspiration struck Zuo Chen. He realized the merit energy on the kasaya originated from the fabric itself and the meticulous stitching. The kasaya was made of nothing special, completely ordinary. If a rough countryman were to put it in the hands of such a person and give it a hard kick, the entire kasaya would shred into pieces, devoid of any magical power. Yet, this very thing could neutralize 50% of the power of Zuo Chen's thunder palm. What about the remaining 49% originating from the wild bear's body? Squatting beside the bear's carcass, placing his hand on its abdomen, Zuo Chen probed his ki into the bear's body. The bear's carcass automatically split in two, and a wildflower that had grown into a cave burst forth from its belly, like a child offering a treasure, carrying out a bear gallbladder. And, a golden elixir. Zuo Chen was startled to see the golden elixir, but he immediately realized it wasn't a demon's elixir, nor a cultivator's elixir filled with innate spiritual energy. This object was covered in an aura of merit, lacking any innate magical power. Compared to cultivator's possessions, it looked more like something burned incense. He wrapped the bear gallbladder in oilcloth and tossed it to Kai, while Zuo Chen picked up the round, glittering golden pill and examined it closely. After examining it for a long time without figuring it out, Zuo Chen simply infused it with a weak amount of ki, intending to test its effects. With a movement of his ki, Zuo Chen suddenly discovered that the golden pill in his hand shone brightly, and Buddhist chants surged in all directions. It was like a pillar of light reaching the heavens. What was this? Only now did Zuo Chen recognize what he held in his hand. This is a relic. No wonder his thunder magic was so weakened. A relic formed purely through merit, without any spiritual cultivation, is a rare treasure. Carrying it on one's person can ward off evil and disaster. Thunder magic, which governs punishment, is already ineffective against those with great fortune and virtue, let alone such a relic. But where did this bear get a relic? Zuo Chen immediately looked into the bear's belly. Sure enough, he saw only half a skeleton. Only now did Zuo Chen finally understand what was going on. The one who went to Wangjia village was probably indeed a high monk. Not high in spiritual cultivation, but high in character and virtue, as high as a mountain, high enough to form a relic. After performing the ritual, he didn't know what to do on the mountain, and ended up encountering a vicious bear. The 100-cloth cassock and the Buddha relic could ward off ghosts, but they couldn't escape a hungry bear with a poor mind. The monk ultimately met his end in this messed-up world. After tasting the monk's flesh and blood, the bear's mind sharpened. It donned a cassock, dressed like a human, and descended the mountain, opening the gate to devour people. Kai, who was clinging to the bear's gull and grinning foolishly, was startled by the sudden burst of light. Even though her eye for treasures wasn't particularly sharp, she could tell that Zuo Chen had obtained a great treasure, and her eyes lit up with joy. But she immediately noticed a crucial problem. The hole above the cave allowed the light to scatter in all directions, visible from the south to the north of the city. In this world, there were those hoarding treasures and those wielding knives. Anyone seeing a treasure would be tempted, and they would ride their horses from all corners of the land towards this place. Wouldn't a couple of clueless fools try to steal it? Kai felt this was quite possible. The golden light that shot out from the mountain was 12 feet thick and 30 feet high, like a golden rod, illuminating half the mountain top. The light flashed for less than half a breath before disappearing. Most people within 100 miles didn't even have time to react. Even those with skills in cultivation only felt something tickle under their armpits, and in their sleep, they softly murmured, "Stop it," before turning over and continuing their deep sleep. The villagers guarding Wangjia village saw the golden light clearly, but they didn't know what kind of treasure it was. A few who knew that a Taoist priest had come up the mountain tonight to exorcise the disaster assumed that the priest was displaying his supernatural powers. They all perked up, hoping that the priest would rid the village of the scourge and restore peace. This golden light was like a small pebble thrown into Kingshao Lake, stirring up ripples but not creating a large splash. However, not everyone was completely unaware of it. 10 miles from Wangjia village, there's a mountain. Climbing 666 steps from the foot of the mountain, you reach a temple. Above the temple gate hangs a huge plaque with the 3 large characters Anming Temple carved in stone. Not content with that, it was gilded, making it gleam. It's late now, and many monks are resting in the temple. In the abbot's quarters, 2 monks, one fat and one thin, are fast asleep on soft couches, both wearing robes made of fine fabric. Suddenly, the thin monk jolted awake, tumbling off the edge of the bed and landing with a thud on the floor. Ouch! A high monk! A high monk! The thin monk cried out twice from the ground, waking the soundly sleeping fat monk. He kicked off the quilt, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Junior brother, what are you doing?" "Senior brother, I just sensed Buddhist supernatural power. Could it be that there's a great monk nearby?" "A great monk?" The fat monk's mind clearly took a while to process, then he suddenly slapped his thigh, his voice rising several octaves. "A great monk? Nearby?" "Yes." The thin monk's face was full of excitement. "The closest to our Anming temple are the Prince of Shou and the Prince of Kang. The Prince of Shou doesn't have any monks under his command, but the Prince of Kang has a great monk. Maybe he's come here. I never thought we could one day be able to curry favor with these princes." With a wave of his hand, the fat monk immediately said, "I'll send someone out right now to invite that great monk over. Let him see how impressive our Anming temple is." The precious light dissipated, and Zuo Chen played with a relic in his hand, sighing slightly. The person who could form a relic of merit must have been a person who accumulated much good karma, but unexpectedly, he perished in the belly of a bear. What a pity. Just as Zuo Chen was about to put away the relic and leave with Kai, he suddenly saw a flash of light on the relic, and it seemed that a small, bald, phantom-like figure peeked out from it. Is there a lingering soul on it? Chapter 33 by Nai Yi. A small, bald head emerged from above the golden relic, peeking out vaguely and unclearly. Zuo Chen infused more spiritual energy into it, and the monk's illusory image on the prayer bead solidified considerably. Only then could the two clearly see the monk's appearance. He appeared robust, with dark skin, and though he should have been 30, he looked 40. His face was gentle, but not particularly handsome. His hands were calloused, and his bare feet were covered in mud. He looked more like an ordinary old farmer than a high-ranking monk. His bald head didn't seem shaved, it looked as if it had fallen out naturally over time. The confusion in his eyes quickly faded. He shook his head, looking around, his gaze finally settling on Zuo Chen. After a moment of blank contemplation, a look of sudden realization appeared on his face. "Am I already dead?" Zuo Chen nodded. The monk scratched his head. I was planning to take the mountain path to Anming Temple, but I was attacked by beasts halfway there. My luck is truly terrible. He then looked at Zuo Chen, a hint of caution in his eyes, and asked, "Are you a deity? Or the king of hell?" "I'm a Taoist priest." "Just like you are a monk," Zuo Chen said. "You want to go to Anming Temple? Why?" "The villagers told me that I can get a full meal there." The monk blushed, scratching his bald head, as if saying something difficult to say. A full meal. With those 3 words in mind, Zuo Chen asked, "Did you come from Shuzhou?" "Taoist priest, you're truly a deity. You know all this?" The monk exclaimed in surprise. "I did come from Shuzhou. The disaster there was severe, I couldn't survive, so I fled south, avoiding the arrows at the pass, and arrived in Qingzhou. This wasn't divine intervention, this was deduction." With a silent scoff, Zuo Chen held a slightly tattered cassock in his hand and said, "Tell me about yourself. Do you have a Dharma name? And this cassock, did you sew it yourself?" "Dharma name? What's a Dharma name?" The monk looked puzzled, then glanced at the cassock and smiled sheepishly. "I didn't sew it myself, many villagers helped me sew it." Seeing that Zuo Chen was still looking at him curiously, the monk didn't hide anything. He was already dead anyway, there was no point in concealing his past. "I was originally from a village in Shuzhou. I was born with short hair. Before the disaster, I would help the villagers with chores because I had been hungry as a child and had saved up quite a bit of food. Later, a traveling merchant came to the village. He heard about what I did and called me a master, but I didn't have any special skills, so he started calling me a monk. He said monks should all have temples. I thought my dilapidated house was fine, but when the villagers heard about it, they all went into the forest to cut down trees and built a temple for me. He also said there should be a Buddha statue in the temple, but neither I nor my village knew what a Buddha looked like. So he said to just carve one in my likeness. I thought it was too much trouble, but the villagers did it anyway. After that, the merchant called me the good monk. People from the surrounding villages would always come to burn incense in front of the Buddha statue, as if I were dead. When they came to burn incense, they always had something they wanted to do. For the simple things, I helped them. For the difficult things, I didn't have the ability. The monk spoke calmly, while Zuo Chen and Kie sat on the stone steps, as if listening to a story. Although the monk spoke very briefly, Zuo Chen could tell that the help he mentioned was probably not simple. Lending a hand on small and big things, even if one doesn't receive merit, can accumulate some good karma. The more good karma one has, the easier it is to receive merit. Behind his profound merit must lie immense blessings, meaning he must have helped countless people. And this monk's profound merit is likely related to a great calamity. Sure enough, as he continued, a complex, indescribable emotion surfaced on the monk's face. Sadness? Fear? Or lingering dread? It was hard to discern. Later, Shuzhou was struck by disaster. The surrounding area was drought-stricken, and locusts swarmed everywhere. Where they flew, not a single wheat remained. Strong men would charge into the swarms with torches, only to emerge as skeletons. They would suck blood and flesh clean. Our village is located in a slightly remote area, near Qingzhou. Although it was affected, it wasn't as severe. Many villagers fled during the disaster. I originally wanted to run too, but then some pregnant women who couldn't even afford food came to the village. I was afraid they would starve, and I was also afraid their children wouldn't have enough to eat, so I stayed. Luckily, I had enough grain stored up, and after much persuasion, I managed to feed them all. I was so busy, trying to find food as soon as I opened my eyes during the day, and I might not be able to sleep until the moon was high in the sky at night. My clothes eventually became worn out, so the villagers I rescued each gave me a piece of cloth, some torn from their own clothes, some cloth merchants offering their best pieces, and one who had nothing but her son's diapers. At the time, there wasn't anyone nearby with good sewing skills. The cloth merchant's owner had lost his hand while fleeing and couldn't sew, so he found a seemingly skillful girl, but she couldn't sew either, and could only sew all the pieces of cloth together. In the end, a cassock? I don't know, that's what the cloth merchant called it. Good deeds emerge during times of disaster. Hearing this, Zuo Chen's heart sank. Although Zuo Chen could roughly guess the origin of the cassock, it wasn't until he heard the monk say it that he truly felt its weight. It was so heavy that even a foundation establishment cultivator could barely hold it. And then? Kie asked. And then? And then all the villagers died. The monk spoke calmly, but tears suddenly streamed down his face. The disaster lasted too long. We ran out of food, and even the bark from the trees 2 meters down was peeled off to make soup. Once the bark was gone, people couldn't stay in the temple any longer. I led them out, and several died along the way. We finally reached the pass of King Zhao, and then they started shooting arrows. The monk fell silent. It was unimaginable that after fighting with all their might to reach King Zhao City, thinking they had finally escaped hell and found a way to survive, they were instead killed by the guards of King Zhao City. So many people, and I'm the only one left. I don't know what to do next, or what I can do. I just know I've finally made it to King Zhao, so I should beg for some food. You go ask those people by the roadside where you can get a full meal. They tell me Anming Temple does. Not only do they have sorghum every day, but they even have steamed buns. So I thought I'd go to Anming Temple and beg for more buns, so I wouldn't go hungry. The monk chuckled sheepishly, embarrassed. Little immortal, I'm sorry you had to listen to me ramble on for so long. Not at all. Zuo Chen shook his head, looking at the monk earnestly. I'm no immortal. Your cultivation is far superior to mine. Please vote, everyone. I'll kowtow twice more. Chapter 34 Go to Anming. When Zuo Chen came down the mountain carrying the bear's head, Wang Erniu had been waiting at the village entrance for a long time. He paced back and forth, his face filled with anxiety, clearly restless. Wang Erniu turned his head and saw the two coming down the mountain, then happily approached. Taoist Master. Once close, Wang Erniu noticed that Zuo Chen was carrying a dark object. Upon closer inspection, he realized it was the head of the black bear from before. Staring at the bear's head, Wang Erniu felt a surge of joy, yet also a chill. It was too dark. If one couldn't see clearly, they might have mistaken it for a human head. The disaster in your village was caused by this thing. After I cut it off, there won't be any more strange things happening in the village at night, Zuo Chen said to Wang Erniu, who smiled broadly. He then asked, Taoist priest, is this bear the monk in disguise? It looks human but not demonic. How could a bear be so clever? Zuo Chen shook his head. A monk is a monk. This has nothing to do with him. He was just as unlucky as everyone else in your village, encountering a bear on the mountain and getting eaten. Wang Erniu nodded, seemingly understanding. Things then went much more smoothly. Wang Erniu took the bear head directly to the village chief's house. When he placed the head on the village chief's table, the village chief was initially so frightened he almost fainted. After recovering, he repeatedly confirmed whether this creature on the mountain was indeed the one that had harmed people. Upon receiving a positive answer, the village chief burst into tears and then laughed heartily. He went straight into the house, grabbed a gong and a suona, a type of Chinese wind instrument, and asked his wife to find him a red ribbon. He then rushed out of the house, playing the gong, dancing, and blowing the gong, shouting, "The disaster is gone! The disaster is gone!" The villagers initially thought their village chief had gone mad from the pressure. But after hearing him dance and bang the gong for a full incense stick's time without encountering any misfortune, some of the bolder villagers came out to see what was happening. The village chief was also happy, telling everyone he met what had happened that day. When he heard that the disaster was caused by a black bear, and that its head had been chopped off, the rest of the village beamed with joy. Many of the happiest even joined the village chief in shouting and dancing, patrolling the village at night. After all that commotion, the village chief's procession grew larger and larger, with some banging gongs, some beating drums, some carrying lanterns, some singing, and others cursing. Heaven sent down this wild bear to bring misfortune upon us. It's not human. The village chief walked at the front, playing the suona, a traditional Chinese wind instrument, his face flushed red. The whole night was like New Year's Day, incredibly lively. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone in the village was awake, the village chief had someone bring out an 8 immortal table again and urged those who could work in the kitchen to cook. By the time dawn broke, a feast was laid out to entertain Zuo Chen and his companions. Zuo Chen didn't refuse and ate with the villagers. The feast didn't end until the sun was high in the sky. The villagers who hadn't slept well the night before all went back to their houses and slept soundly. The village chief had also drunk a bit too much the night before and was now dizzy, so his wife took him back to his room. When they reached the village gate, only Wang Erniu was left to see them off. "Master, the village chief asked me to bring you this as a token of our respect." Wang Erniu simply brought out a basket of loose silver. Zuo Chen weighed the silver in his hand. It was about 3 jin, approximately 1.5 kg. It was far less than what Li Lazy had given him, but it was still a token of his goodwill. The village chief also said that since he saw you were on your way, there happened to be a strong donkey and a cart in the village. You can use them for now. Someone led over a donkey, which was pulling a small cart made of wooden planks. Wang Erniu easily lifted the basket of silver with one hand and placed it on the cart. Looking around, there were many other baskets on the cart, piled with fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as dried meat preserved in salt. There was also a rather large gourd filled with wine, which Kie had specifically asked for yesterday. The donkey seemed a bit stubborn, whining and grumbling, as if dissatisfied with its seemingly weak new master. Zuo Chen walked to the donkey's ear and patted its head, instantly calming the donkey down. The villagers near Wang Erniu found it strange. This donkey was sturdy and durable, a good donkey, only a little stubborn. They hadn't expected it to be so well behaved next to the Taoist priest. Zuo Chen mounted the donkey, while Kie sat on the back of the cart next to the silver basket, smiling and holding the silver. See you again sometime. After saying goodbye, Zuo Chen patted the donkey's head, and the donkey, as if recognizing the way, began pulling the cart forward. Wang Erniu silently watched Zuo Chen leave from the village entrance until their figures disappeared on the horizon. On the donkey cart, once Wangjia village was completely out of sight, Kie, holding the gourd containing bear bile, asked, Taoist priest, where are we going next? Let's go to Anming Temple first, then leave the pass. Anming Temple? What for? Kie didn't understand. A bald head peeked out from Zuo Chen's sleeve, accompanied by two little children, one golden and one jade. Miss Kie, the monk said, I asked the Taoist priest to take me to see what a real monk is like. I've been called a monk my whole life, but I don't know what a real monk is like. Even though I don't need to eat anymore, I really want to see a monk who can eat his fill. Hey, don't tug at my clothes. The monk frantically tried to appease the children, making them giggle. Kie was speechless. It was indeed strange that someone who had been a monk his whole life didn't know what other monks were like. But after thinking for a moment, she leaned closer to Zuo Chen and whispered, I heard the village chief talk about Anming Temple. That temple seems a bit lacking. Is it really okay for a monk to go? The monk isn't going to preach. He's just curious. Let him see, Zuo Chen said. He paused slightly, then said, if it were a relic, I would accept it. But since it contains the monk's 3 souls and 7 spirits, it is no longer a treasure. Naturally, I cannot decide for him whether to keep it or not. It's not like he's a robber. This isn't even a treasure. Kie stared at the relic being played with by the golden boy and jade girl. If this thing fell into anyone else's hands, they would want to take it out and play with it day and night. They could even fish out your soul, and sew it into painting as a treasure. The Taoist priest is indeed different from others. Anming Temple sent out several young monks to walk along the foot of the mountain in 4 directions, searching for the great monk's whereabouts. Last night, although their deputy abbot sensed the presence of the great monk in the vicinity through his own methods, he couldn't pinpoint his location, so he could only keep his subordinates busy. One of the young monks followed the mountain path, winding and turning, until he came to the official road bordering Xuzhou. Seeing that Xuzhou was desolate, the young monk was afraid that a few refugees would suddenly appear and eat him, so he planned to turn back. But suddenly he saw a sedan chair coming from not far away in the direction of Xuzhou. 5 emaciated monks struggled to carry the sedan chair, their upper bodies bare, sweat soaking their trousers. 4 monks were positioned at each corner, while the last one supported the bottom of the chair, his eyes nearly rolling back from exhaustion. Sitting directly above the chair was a fat monk with a large head and ears, holding a bowl filled with rice. Upon seeing the young monk, the sedan chair stopped. The young monk sensed a strange power emanating from the fat monk and, believing him to be the person he was looking for, rushed to the sedan chair, knelt, and kowtowed repeatedly. Master, I am a monk from Anming Temple nearby. My abbot sensed your arrival and hopes you will do me the honor of visiting Anming Temple. The fat monk lowered his head, staring at him. Anming Temple? Does it have offerings? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Monk Xuanmi. The young monk led the senior monk up the mountain. The 5 monks carrying the sedan chair beneath the senior monk were panting heavily, their sweat soaking the ground, but none dared to stop, gritting their teeth and persevering. After climbing all 666 steps, the 5 monks finally managed to place the sedan chair steadily on the ground, then scattered in 4 directions, some lying flat on the ground, others on their sides on stone blocks. The last one was simply crushed under the sedan chair, motionless, as if dead. Useless. Can't even carry a sedan chair steadily, no skill whatsoever. Bringing you out here is a disgrace, the fat monk coldly snorted, then stepped down from the sedan chair. His feet wobbled as he landed on the ground, standing at the entrance of Anming Temple. The young monk looked at the senior monk's behavior, an awkward smile on his face, but he didn't say anything. He wondered if he had been bewitched to invite such a living Buddha. The gates of Anming Temple opened, and the 2 abbots, one main and one assistant, emerged from the temple. Their faces showed surprise upon seeing the fat monk, and they exchanged bewildered glances. This high monk seemed somewhat different from what they had imagined. However, the necessary courtesy had to be observed, and the fat monk immediately smiled and approached. Amitabha, this humble monk is Yi, and this is my junior brother Anar. We are the abbots of Anming Temple. May I ask your Dharma name, master? This humble monk is Xuanmi, a retainer of Prince Kang. The fat monk, holding his alms bowl, remained expressionless, examining Anming Temple as if it were a commodity. But when Yi and Anar heard the fat monk's self-address, they were immediately overjoyed. It really was that great monk from Prince Kang. In this world of warring states, being able to associate with a warlord was far more promising than becoming an official in the court. Prince Shou's side has no monks, and they have no connections there. If they want to legitimately ingratiate themselves with a vassal king, Prince Kang is their only option. Now that this great monk has come to their temple, it's a godsend. As for the famine in Shuzhou, which is under Prince Kang's jurisdiction, it doesn't matter to the 2 monks. Their Anming Temple can't really move away. They'll have plenty to eat and drink in Qingzhou. What does the famine in Shuzhou have to do with us? Besides, even if we really become Prince Kang's retainers, while ordinary people can't afford to eat, can Prince Kang really not afford to eat? We've heard that Prince Kang is 2 meters tall and weighs 3 dan, a unit of weight, and he has fine wine and venison every day, beautiful women by his side, and his retainers are all very wealthy. Based on their current assets, they can only grow richer and richer. Master Xuanmi, I've long admired your name. My junior brother observed the celestial phenomena last night and sensed that a distinguished person was about to arrive at our temple. This morning, we cleaned the temple thoroughly, just waiting for your arrival. And Yi smiled and approached Xuanmi, bowing respectfully, intending to invite him in. Upon hearing his words, Xuanmi's previously expressionless face revealed a strange emotion. He looked at Yi and Anar up and down, then suddenly said, I am representing Prince Kang on this occasion. Wherever I step into, it signifies Prince Kang's arrival. And Yi and Anar exchanged bewildered glances, unsure of the abbot's meaning. Seeing that the 2 were unyielding, Xuanmi frowned. With Prince Kang's protection, your temple is under his banner. Do you think you can let me in just with a simple please? Hearing this, Yi immediately understood. He immediately gave Anar a wink, and the latter ran into the temple. A short while later, Anar returned. Anar approached Xuanmi and pulled a gleaming, exquisitely crafted gold ingot from his sleeve. He respectfully presented it to Xuanmi, who took it, weighed it in his hand, and then a slight smile appeared on his face. Not bad, he said, placing the gold ingot on his alms bowl. The pile of rice slid down like quicksand, and the gold ingot immediately sank and disappeared. Anar were dumbfounded. What kind of treasure was this, possessing such power? Sinking rice to hold something, this was a skill most people couldn't learn. Truly a retainer of a prince. Even if his abilities weren't on par with those of noble families, they were probably not far behind. After receiving the gold ingot, Xuanmi finally stepped into the temple. Led by Yi and Anar, Xuanmi entered the main hall, where he immediately spotted a large Buddha statue in the central hall. The benevolent-looking Buddha sat on a lotus throne, his entire body golden, clearly painted with gold lacquer. Upon entering, he felt an overwhelming sense of radiance. Whether the Buddha was efficacious or not was another matter, but its brilliance was undeniable. A small table sat before him, with several incense burners on it, and in front of the table was a wooden box with the words offering box carved in large characters. Xuanmi leaned over and patted it lightly, hearing a clanging sound from within. Master Xuanmi, We'll arrange a superior room for you right away, and Yi said obsequiously, approaching Xuanmi. That won't be necessary, Xuanmi shook his head. I'm carrying a mission given to me by the King of Kang. Send a few young monks south to Qingzhou City. Stop any strange or unusual people you encounter along the way and question them. Question what? And Yi asked suspiciously. Along the way, ask. Have you seen any great merits? If not, continue walking into the city. When you reach Qingzhou City, ask the local commoners, is the river god here? Is there any young master coming? The two monks were completely baffled as to why the master was doing this. His words sounded strange, like a riddle, but upon hearing that it was a task given by the King of Kang, they hurriedly nodded. As for me, bring a good prayer cushion and then go to the kitchen and get a bowl of rice. I need to burn incense and worship Buddha. And Yi and exchanged a glance. They had thought Master Xuanmi was greedy for the silver he had brought earlier, but they hadn't expected him to worship Buddha after entering. He was truly a model monk. They didn't dare delay and immediately relayed all the instructions Master Xuanmi had given them. A group of young monks went out through the mountain gate and began walking south. The best prayer cushion in the temple was placed directly in front of the golden Buddha. After several bowls of rice were placed in front of Xuanmi, he plopped down on the prayer mat, waved for An Yi and to leave. Once they were gone, leaving only Xuanmi in the hall, he sneered. Two fools, they probably mistook yesterday's great merit for mine. Xuanmi had also suddenly felt a surge of great merit erupting from Qingzhou last night, like fireworks exploding in the night. He guessed it was the appearance of a treasure, and having just received a mission from the Kang King to investigate Qingzhou City, he had sent several servants with him here. The deputy abbot of Anming Temple seemed to have learned some rudimentary treasure hunting techniques, mistaking the treasure for a person, which was why he had invited him in. Having come all this way, how could he leave empty-handed? Xuanmi looked at the large Buddha statue before him, his eyes filled with greed. Chapter 36 5 Ghosts Moving Money. At the foot of Anming Temple Mountain lies a town. Originally nameless, it came to be known as Anming Town after Anming Temple became famous far and wide. Located closest to the Qingzhou Pass, it was once a transit point for trade between Qingzhou and Xuzhou, and its inhabitants were incredibly wealthy. However, after a famine struck Xuzhou, where people struggled to feed themselves, the town could no longer afford to bring cloth and venison to trade for live fish and rice. The townspeople were forced to become porters or gather a few daring wealthy merchants to sell grain to Xuzhou. When Zuo Chen and his companion entered the town in their donkey cart, it was quite lively. Walking along the street, one could find vendors selling rice, cloth, and candied hawthorns, as well as fortune-tellers. While its bustling atmosphere couldn't compare to Qingzhou City, it had its own unique charm. As Zuo Chen walked along the road, he saw Kai drooling over the candied hawthorns, so he approached a vendor, slapped down a few copper coins, and bought 2 strings of hawthorns and 1 string of jujubes. He gave the hawthorns to Kai, and ate the jujubes himself. The candy coating was made from coarse sugar, and it tasted slightly astringent and dry, not particularly delicious, but definitely not bad either. Shopkeeper, there are quite a few people in this town, Zuo Chen asked the vendor after chewing a couple of jujubes. The vendor, who was counting his money, immediately beamed when he heard Zuo Chen's question. Of course, thanks to Anming Temple on the mountain. Wealthy gentlemen from the surrounding area come to burn incense. They naturally can't buy another property in town, so they stay at the nearby inn. When they come out to stroll around, we can earn some money. In addition, the temple also distributes some spare money. Do you see the farmland down the mountain? Those fields belong to Anming Temple. We rented them out to the surrounding farmers. When the wheat ripened, we removed the husks, sent 70% of it upstairs, and kept 30% for ourselves. We were still quite well off. Good heavens, this place is still in its infancy when it comes to tourism. Zuo Chen thought to himself, his gaze drifting towards the distant mountain. At the summit, the temple shone with a golden light, seemingly bathed in divine light. But after a few glances, Zuo Chen's brows furrowed. Ghostly energy. This temple actually has ghostly energy. And this time, the ghostly energy seems even more concentrated, almost rivaling that of the fathead fish in the river. It's been about a week since he came down from the mountain and entered the mortal world, and Zuo Chen could roughly estimate that the fathead fish was quite capable in the current alien, able to stir up trouble and wreak havoc in the right place. The ghostly energy in the temple was similar, But Zuo Chen couldn't see anything wrong with the lives of the surrounding townspeople. Seeing that the sun was gradually setting behind the mountains, and estimating that the division of day and night would occur in a little while, Zuo Chen quickly calculated the time and drove his donkey towards the foot of the mountain. They could tie the donkey at the foot of the mountain and climb up, allowing Zuo Chen to see what was going on with the ghostly aura in the temple. It was a pity he hadn't yet developed his supernatural abilities of seeing and hearing from afar, otherwise, a mere gust of wind would have been enough for him to discern whether the temple was bright and clean or shrouded in filth. Monk Xuanmi sat in the main hall. The entire temple was currently closed to visitors, temporarily refusing to entertain those who came to offer incense. No monk dared to peek at Monk Xuanmi from inside the main hall, so they all gathered around the 5 thin, bald men carrying Xuanmi's palanquin, bombarding him with questions under the guise of discussing Buddhist teachings, but actually trying to probe Xuanmi's background. However, after finishing 5 bowls of rice, these men fell silent. The leader asked for a guest room, and the 5 of them went in and fell fast asleep, clearly exhausted from carrying Xuanmi up the mountain. Thus, An Yi and An naturally couldn't get the prince's thoughts out of him, let alone figure out how their retainers could get in. They could only sit facing each other in the side hall, dumbfounded. "Senior brother, does this mean we've already entered Prince Kang's inner circle? How would I know?" And he rolled his eyes. "Don't worry, Master Xuanmi can't leave tomorrow morning either. It's too late now, we can't just rush in and ask the master. Let's just wait patiently. That's all we can do." And sighed. The 2 were talking inside the room, completely unaware that the 5 monks sleeping in the main room had all opened their eyes simultaneously. They all struggled in pain, then opened their mouths wide, and another, slightly smaller version of themselves crawled out, red skin, an extremely long tongue, hunched over, and with a round belly. The 5 bizarre little monks landed on the ground, chattered for a few moments, then quickly agreed, each clutching a handful of rice. They searched quickly and ran out of the room. Their goals were clear: 1 went to the rice room, 1 to the storeroom, 1 to the scripture pavilion, and the remaining 2 searched the entire courtyard, eventually finding a hidden room in the temple's basement. They took a cloth bag from the rice room, scooped out all the rice from each rice bin, then added yellow soil. With each lid closed, the room was filled with white rice again. But if someone dug out a bowl and steamed it, only a large mound of earth would be left. Those who went to the storeroom looted all sorts of trinkets, tied them up in large cloth bags, skewered them with small bamboo sticks, and carried them away like loads. The one in the scripture pavilion had no interest in the various scriptures. He wandered around, unable to find any treasures, and grew increasingly frustrated. Finally, he had no choice but to remove the lamp from in front of the desk. Finally, there were 2 little devils in the basement. Upon arriving, their eyes lit up at the sight of the room full of gold and silver treasures. They frantically carried everything out, making 7 trips before emptying the place. After all this commotion, no one in the temple noticed. The monks went about their business, some preparing to rest, others eating and chanting. The kitchen staff weren't preparing supper that night, so they were unaware that rice weevils had emptied the rice bins. Meanwhile, the little devils carried everything into the main hall, stuffing it into the bowl in front of the brown rice bowl. Even seemingly large items shrank and sank into the bowl, disappearing without a trace once placed on it. After a considerable amount of time, the 5 little devils had stuffed everything into the bowl before giving Xuanmi a comical bow. Xuanmi snorted and tossed them the rice the temple had prepared. They cheered and began gnawing on the rice grains on the ground like hungry ghosts. Having dealt with the little devils, Xuanmi stared at the bowl with satisfaction. What the Prince of Kang bestowed upon us is indeed a good thing. This tiny millet bowl can hold so much stuff. The supernatural power left behind by the capital is truly amazing. After confirming that he had looted everything around him, Xuanmi closed his eyes. Zuo Chen and Kai had arrived at the entrance of Anming Temple, but the temple gates were tightly shut, showing no sign of opening. Curious, and glancing at the time, it was still afternoon, not yet dusk. Why was the temple gates closed? Zuo Chen reached out and knocked on the gate. Chapter 37. This temple does not accept visitors. 3 knocks were made on the door. After a short wait, the temple gate was pushed open, and a young monk peeked in. He saw a Taoist priest and a woman outside, and his smile vanished instantly. "I thought it was my senior brothers returning," the young monk muttered, then glanced at them sideways. "Who are you 2? What do you want?" "Our temple is closed today," We don't receive outsiders. It's still early. Why are you closed? Zuo Chen asked curiously. He had heard from the village chief that Enming Temple was notorious for its exorbitant fees, and Zuo Chen had assumed the temple would be open 24/7 to collect donations. He hadn't expected them to be closed so early today. A distinguished guest has come to our temple. Who knows, even princes might come to offer incense here in the future. The little monk snorted, his face arrogant. Why am I telling you two this? Even if no distinguished guest came today, a Taoist priest and a woman wouldn't be allowed into the temple. His tone was slightly barbed. Kie, hot-tempered, pointed at the little monk and shouted, "Hey! What do you mean? What's wrong with the Taoist priest? What did my woman do to you? Buddhist holy sites don't accept women, it's not peaceful. That's why they say the secular world doesn't enter the monk's gates." He then looked at Zuo Chen and said, "What are you doing at our temple, Taoist priest? Debating scriptures? It's not convenient today. We'll talk about it when the abbot is free. You two can rest for a while down the mountain, there's an inn there." After saying that, the little monk waved his hand. "Is there nothing else? Then leave quickly, I'm closing the door." This wasn't a request, but a statement. As soon as he finished speaking, the little monk bolted the door shut. Seeing that she was being turned away, Kie stomped her feet angrily at the door. The monks at Enming Temple weren't very nice. Zuo Chen recalled the description given by the village chief of Wangjia village, and thought that this little monk might be the same one who had mocked the village chief for being poor. Hearing this, Kie sullenly said, "If it were any other gangster with the ability to kill, they would probably have gone into the temple tonight and burned all the monks alive." Zuo Chen, while this little monk's attitude was a bit problematic, wasn't it a bit too vicious to remove the brains of their entire family because of that? "Master, these days human life is as cheap as locusts. Some people aren't even worth a penny." Kie sighed, her anger subsiding. Zuo Chen took out a relic and asked the monk inside, "What do you think of these monks?" "Not good." The monk shook his head repeatedly. "There are even different classes for those who come to the temple. Strange, strange, I don't understand." "Then let's go down the mountain," Zuo Chen said, then descended the mountain with the colorful robes, no longer paying attention to the ghostly aura. Only the monk inside the relic looked back at the temple. His gaze seemed to pass over the thick gate, the courtyard, and reach the main hall, where he saw the golden Buddha. "This is the Buddha? Not very good looking." The monk shook his head and shrank back into the relic. Inside the main hall, Master Zuanmi, who had emptied all the treasures, was resting with his eyes closed, intending to sleep, when suddenly his nose twitched. "Treasure!" He sprang up from his meditation cushion with a thud, sniffing left and right. Zuanmi rushed out of the main hall and into the courtyard. His sudden action startled the monks still lingering in the courtyard. They crowded around, wanting to ask the master what else he needed, but Zuanmi hurriedly walked to the threshold, bent down like a dog, and began sniffing. The surrounding young monks thought he was possessed and none dared to approach. After sniffing for a while, Zuanmi suddenly grabbed the young monk who had been guarding the door. "Did someone come by just now?" The young monk turned pale with fright and hurriedly nodded, "Yes, a Taoist priest and a woman. I chased them away." "Chased them away?" Zuanmi roared, "Useless trash." Zuanmi kicked the young monk in the chest, and the young monk's body flew backward like a kite with a broken string, crashing through the door beam, knocking over a pile of firewood, rolling 4 or 5 times on the ground, and finally rolling to the stone wall, spitting out several mouthfuls of blood, his life hanging in the balance. "Junior brother." The other monks in the temple were shocked and rushed to the side of the little monk who had been kicked half to death, unsure whether to help him or not. Zhuanmi had no time to care about these people. His treasure hunting skills weren't that advanced yet. Even if he sniffed with all his might, he could only faintly smell that 2 ordinary people had taken a treasure. But he could discern from the remaining scent just how powerful the treasure was. It was practically higher than a mountain. This was the treasure that had appeared last night. His goal in coming here. He chased after it desperately, and in no time, Zhuanmi disappeared. An Yi and Enner, who were in the room, came out after hearing the commotion. They stared at the noisy monks and frowned. "What's all this fuss about?" The surrounding monks, seeing the abbot come out, gathered around the two of them, wailing. After hearing that Zhuanmi had kicked their little monk so badly that he was almost dead, the two of them were shocked and, without even thinking about the little monk, rushed to the temple gate. "Senior brother, he really ran away. What do we do?" I don't know either. And Yi looked bewildered. He glanced at the 5 monks left in the guest room, his expression softening slightly. Master Zuanmi should be back. His 5 disciples are still here. Why did he rush out in such a hurry? And muttered, is there something he can tell us? SHH, junior brother. You can't say that. And Yi quickly covered an mouth. Whatever the Prince Kang's retainers do is arranged by the Prince Kang. He has his reasons for doing this. Let's just watch quietly. The two abbots chatted idly, completely ignoring the little monk who was almost dying behind them. Master Zuanmi's anger was the most important thing. As for the monks, they had plenty in their temple. They could just recruit a few more to fill the gaps later. Zuo Chen and Kai reached the foot of the mountain. Zuo Chen had just untied the rope binding the donkey when he suddenly stopped. Turning her head, she looked towards the woods behind her. What guidance does this eminent monk offer? Kai was slightly taken aback, then immediately turned around, only to find a plump monk carrying an iron bowl standing behind her. Taoist master, you have quite the keen eye. Zuanmi wiped the sweat from his brow with his sleeve, his face beaming with a harmless smile. Taoist master, I see a treasure in your sleeve. This item has a connection with my Buddhist sect. May I borrow it to examine it? Please vote, everyone. Chapter 38. Is your treasure more important or your life? Taoist master, I see you possess a treasure. This treasure seems to have a connection with our Buddhist sect. May I have the privilege of examining it? The monk Zuanmi chuckled as he looked at Zuo Chen. He couldn't sense any aura emanating from Zuo Chen, and observing his slender build and jade-like hands, he didn't seem like a man who had diligently practiced martial arts. He wasn't carrying any weapons, and probably didn't even know a shred of kung fu. He was definitely just an ordinary mortal with no real skills. As for the girl, although she was dressed elegantly and looked like a young lady from a wealthy family, her hands were calloused, suggesting she might have some martial arts skills. Perhaps she was this Taoist master's protector. But this didn't matter to Zuanmi. If someone like that possessed a treasure, wouldn't it be a gift to someone else? Zuanmi didn't even bother pretending anymore. His eyes were filled with greed as he slowly approached Zuo Chen and Kai. Zuo Chen sized Zuanmi up and down, then suddenly smiled. I did find a few treasures while searching the mountains before. They're all in my bamboo basket. If you want to see them, monk, I'll take them out one by one and let you see them. Great. Zuanmi was overjoyed. Don't worry, Taoist master, I have plenty of money. Give me the things, and I'll give you money. Would that be wonderful? Zuo Chen didn't answer, but opened his bamboo basket. He rummaged through it and took out his red-skinned eggs. Look at these eggs. They were laid by the chickens I raised on the mountain. Taoist master, don't play tricks on me. Who wants to see your eggs? Monk Zuanmi's face darkened. Since the monk doesn't want them, Kai, you can take them for now. Zuo Chen casually tossed the eggs to Kai. Kai hurriedly caught them with both hands, and after the eggs were indeed in her hands, a silly grin appeared on her face. Previously, when Kai was with Liu Lazy, she had seen Zuo Chen's eggs. She had wanted some then, but firstly, she didn't know if Zuo Chen had any left, and secondly, it would be too embarrassing to snatch something from a pregnant woman, so she gave up. Unexpectedly, the Taoist priest had given her one today. She didn't care about anything else, peeled the eggshell, and ate it in a few bites. Feeling choked, she pulled out her wine gourd and chugged it down in 3 gulps. Zuanmi glanced at Kai disdainfully, her eyes like she was looking at a starving ghost she had raised. Zuo Chen then rummaged through his basket and pulled out the tattered cassock. This cassock is... Before Zuo Chen could finish speaking, Zuanmi's face darkened even more. What do you mean by pulling out a rag? I just told you not to play tricks, and you're playing tricks on me again. Taoist, I'm warning you, don't try to fool me. I know you have something good on you. Hand it over honestly, I'll give you silver, and then we'll go our separate ways. If you try to fool me with this junk again, be careful, this humble monk won't be polite. Hearing this, Zuo Chen's smile widened. Looks like the monk doesn't think much of this precious cassock. Zuo Chen put the cassock away, then reached into his right sleeve with his left hand and pulled something out. Instantly, a faint golden light flickered from the center of his fingers. Zuanmi's eyes widened in shock. The scent of treasure wafted over, instantly intoxicating him. Zuanmi clearly saw Zuo Chen take out a golden relic. With 2 small children hanging beside it, swinging around as if hugging a corner of the relic, laughing as they did so. A golden boy and a jade girl. About a relic. Holy crap. Xuanmi rubbed his eyes hard, feeling like he'd seen something amazing today. The Golden Boy and Jade Girl artifacts require decades of experience from veteran craftsmen, years of meticulous carving, and a stroke of good fortune to create such a lifelike pair of gold and jade objects. Xuanmi had seen them before, but never one so vividly lifelike. Others' replicas were at best lifelike, resembling children, but upon closer inspection, they seemed like illusions. Zuo Chen's, however, truly seemed like living children, brimming with spirit as they played and frolicked. As for the relic, Xuanmi couldn't take his eyes off it. This was a Buddhist treasure. If he could hold it and polish it daily, refining it into his own possession, then a single throw would be unapproachable, and a single tap on the head would be fatal. Xuanmi was drooling with desire. He reached out his free, chubby hand to grab it from Zuo Chen's grasp, as if possessed. However, before he could even grab it, Zuo Chen suddenly lifted the relic, holding it in mid-air like a child. Xuanmi, having missed his target, flew into a rage. You damn Taoist. What the hell do you want? I'm only talking to you about a price because I'm in a good mood. Give me the thing, or I'll break your legs. Zuo Chen ignored him, holding up the relic and asking, Monk, are you willing to go with him? As Zuo Chen asked, the monks had popped out of the relic. Seeing a simple monk emerge from the relic, Xuanmi's eyes widened in disbelief. A remnant soul of a high-ranking monk. If he got his hands on this, found a ghost cultivator, and spent some time refining it, wouldn't he have a powerful monk who kills ghosts? Taoist master, don't tease me. If I go with this scoundrel, my soul will be eaten clean in no time. The monk shook his head, then put his soul back into the relic. Zuo Chen then directly put the relic and the Golden Boy and Jade Girl into his sleeve. Xuanmi finally realized what was happening and flew into a rage. You damn Taoist priest, you fucking tricked me. I'll kill you. He immediately raised his palm and slammed it down on Zuo Chen's head. Zuo Chen didn't hold back either, striking Xuanmi's chest with his own palm. Xuanmi felt an indescribable, immense force pressing down on him from Zuo Chen's palm, sending him flying backward and crashing into an old pine tree at the foot of the mountain. The pine tree creaked and broke in two, crashing to the ground with a loud thud. Xuanmi coughed several times, spitting out a mouthful of blood. He then looked up, first surprised, then confused, and finally a look of understanding dawned on his face. Good lad, you've been hiding your true strength? Xuanmi sneered, showing no intention of backing down. That palm strike was powerful, but he felt he could handle it. Besides, that treasure was so valuable, how could he give it up? Once he got his hands on it, he'd be set for life for 10 years. Only a fool would leave. Zuo Chen patted Kai on the shoulder. Go fight him, let me see how much you've improved lately. Kai pointed to her nose. Me? Of course it's you. Zuo Chen laughed and scolded. Go on. He patted Kai again, and she stumbled, ending up in front of Xuanmi. Zuo Chen had specifically prepared this situation for Kai, otherwise, he would have killed Xuanmi with a single palm strike. Zuo Chen had no intention of showing mercy to someone who intended to kill and rob. Kai, pushed forward, was slightly flustered. She could tell that this fat monk had some skill. Could she possibly be a match for him with her mediocre skills? Seeing Zuo Chen's attitude, Xuanmi knew he was being looked down upon, so he sneered, I'll kill this little wench first, then break your limbs, and dispose of her corpse right in front of you. Your mouth is quite foul. Kai's fear vanished completely from Xuanmi's insult. Having been refused entry on the mountain, she already harbored resentment towards the monks, so she simply took a deep breath and opened her mouth towards Xuanmi. Whoosh! The oncoming flame startled Xuanmi. This little wench can breathe fire. Chapter 39 Turning Beans into Soldiers. Faced with the onrushing wall of fire, Xuanmi's disdain vanished completely. What the hell? He rolled to the side like a nimble pig, barely managing to avoid the blazing inferno. Even so, the fabric covering his backside caught fire, sending shivers of pain through him. He howled and ran around, clutching his rear. Seeing that the fire wouldn't go out, Xuanmi leaped into the air, landing heavily on his backside. His plump body rippled upwards, kicking up dust and creating a dust storm. By the time Xuanmi got up, the fire was finally extinguished. His face was blackened, his teeth clenched, his body charred and blackened. A large hole burned into his buttocks, revealing two blackened, soot-covered buttocks. Who the hell had this? It even breathed fire. Xuanmi was both shocked and furious. Having roamed the martial world for so many years, he couldn't claim to be an expert on every trick in the book, but he could at least rattle off a few. As for fire breathing, that was undoubtedly the specialty of street performers, and occasionally a NUO opera singer might pull off such a feat, but ultimately it was just a showy display, barely qualifying as real skill. Let alone burning a person, even roasting a chicken would be a struggle. How could anyone possess such power? The incomprehensible technique naturally aroused Zhuan Mi's suspicion. He asked with a grim face, "Are you two working for Prince Shou?" Kai, still in a good mood after her fire-breathing performance, blinked at Zhuan Mi's question. Huh? Zhuan Mi. Was she feigning ignorance or genuinely naive? Zhuan Mi couldn't tell. However, given the situation, Zhuan Mi knew the other party was determined to kill him. What to do? Run? But then Zhuan Mi looked at Zuo Chen, who hadn't yet made a move, and remembered the two treasures hidden in his sleeve. His eyes turned red. I still have magic weapons. Kill. Kill them both, and all the treasure will be mine. Zhuan Mi thrust his hand into the rice bowl, which was less than 3 inches deep. His arm went in halfway, seemingly coiled up inside, a bizarre and sinister sight. Then, Zhuan Mi gritted his teeth, 2 veins bulging on his forehead, and with a screw sound, pulled a bone from the rice pile. It was a vertebra, piece by piece, root by root, held in Zhuan Mi's palm. Spikes pierced his hand, and blood flowed down, seeping from the bone crevices. The blood trailed down to the tip of the spine, resembling a large, blood-stained knife. Good heavens! What a sinister thing! Kai cried out. Even with her limited skills, she could sense the thick layer of malevolent energy emanating from this vertebral sword. HMPH. Zhuan Mi also felt a piercing pain in his arm holding the sword, but he didn't care. He stepped forward with his left leg, straightened his right leg, and raised the whip high behind his head, his entire plump body like a fully drawn bow. Go for it. He suddenly lowered his hand, creating a gust of evil wind, and the spinal sword slashed from behind his head to in front of him, making a cracking sound of bones colliding. The spinal sword was originally about 2 feet long, but Zhuan Mi swung it so fiercely that it was pulled more than 3 zang long. It drew a blood snake in the air and bit at Kai's neck. Kwa? This is sharp, Taoist, save me. Kai cried out and ran towards Zuo Chen. The blood snake chased after her and was about to bite her when Kai slapped a yellow fluffed ball out of her hand and threw it behind her. This act of throwing caused an unusual phenomenon. The yellow pom-pom flashed in the air, then rapidly expanded, transforming into another figure in colorful robes in the blink of an eye, perfectly identical. This figure made a face at Zhuan Mi the moment it appeared, before being pierced through by the blood snake. It let out a strange croak, its body rapidly shrinking, then returning to its original small shape. Zuo Chen, who was about to intervene, let out a soft exclamation, lowering his raised hand. He seemed to have seen this technique in some myths from before his transmigration. Zhuan Mi was clearly also stunned. He stared at the fake figure he had stabbed to death for a long time before asking blankly, "What kind of technique is this?" "I don't know." The figure was also dumbfounded, not expecting its substitute pill to have such power. Zuo Chen, watching from the side, thought for a moment, then casually grabbed a small cloth bag from the donkey cart, scooped out a small bag of soybeans from the food Wang Ernie had given him, and tossed it to the figure. Use the soybeans to demonstrate the technique you just used, and pay attention to your ki circulation. Kai took the soybeans, stunned. Huh? Taoist? Are you serious? My substitute pill will take more than a month to refine. You money grubber. Don't look down on me. You're giving me a live demonstration, take this. Zhuan Mi wouldn't give them time to chat. The spine sword was swung up again, this time sweeping horizontally, seemingly trying to cut Kai in two along her waist. Seeing that Zuo Chen had no intention of intervening, Kai could only cry and clutch a handful of soybeans, yelling as she circulated her ki and flung the beans away. As the beans landed, they did indeed change. Puffs of smoke rose, and 7 smaller versions of Kai emerged from the ground. They were also wearing the same plain clothes, all around 7 or 8 years old, a whole bunch of little children. Seeing the blood sword sweeping over, 3 little children lined up, holding hands to try and withstand the blood sword. 6 tiny hands shot forward, colliding with the blood-red sword. A hissing sound rang out as the blade pierced flesh, and the little children were thrown back and forth, but they had blocked the blood-red sword. The three children who blocked the sword let out the same strange cry as the one in colorful clothes before turning into smoke, leaving behind 3 cracked openings on the ground. The remaining 4 charged directly at Zuo, some scratching, some biting, and some headbutting him. The last one slid up his back and onto his shoulders, then straddled him with its little legs and covered Zuo's eyes with its hands. Cut off my head, my foot. What kind of sorcery is this? Zuo was shocked and swung his sword wildly around his head, but these 4 little things were too small and kept darting around, running under his armpits or crawling under his crotch. How could Zuo catch them? Kai finally calmed down. Seeing that the little beans she had thrown possessed such supernatural power, her willow leaf eyebrows instantly curved into crescent moons with a smile. Hands on hips, pointing forward, she exuded confidence. Girls. Bide him. Zuo Chen, standing nearby, looked at these little girls with considerable surprise. This was turning beans into soldiers. He hadn't even figured out how it worked, and Kai already knew it. Could her substitute pill have been created using this supernatural power? Zuo Chen stroked his chin, feeling that all the various methods in the Great Liang Dynasty had traces of magical arts. Zuo, who had been teased for half a day, finally couldn't take it anymore. With a long howl, he raised his rice bowl. Come in, all of you. With that shout, a suction force suddenly emanated from the rice bowl, pulling several little children in with cries and screams. After hitting the bowl, they turned into fused openings and disappeared into the sea of rice. Kai also felt a powerful suction force. Her smug expression vanished instantly, and she pounced to Zuo Chen's feet, grabbing his ankles with both hands. Zuo Chen, on the other hand, stared at the rice bowl, his heart pounding. This seems like a wonderful method, grandpas. Please vote and keep reading. Chapter 40 Embracing All Rivers. Zuo was truly driven to desperation this time. He wouldn't normally use the rice bowl against his enemies. If the object, piled high with treasures, were targeted, the gold and silver would spill out, scattering everywhere. Who could bear that? But if he didn't use this treasure, he feared these little girls would utterly destroy him. The magical artifact activated, its effect remarkable. Zuo instantly dealt with the little ghosts clinging to him. His eyes blazed with fury, his face contorted with malice as he glared fiercely at Zuo Chen and Kai. When his gaze fell upon Kai, he practically wanted to grind his teeth to dust. You wicked vixen. What kind of family is this? She's got no skills, but she'd be perfect for running a brothel. Zuo's mouth was foul, and Kai's face flushed with anger. You're interested in a 7 or 8-year-old. You should be sent to the palace to be castrated, you lecherous monk. Hearing this, Zuo laughed loudly. The little emperor is only 14, and the court is in chaos. Send me to the palace? I'll sleep with the emperor too. He raised the bowl, pointing it at Zuo Chen and Kai. Give me the treasure. The rice in the bowl swirled inward like a whirlpool, a tremendous suction force emanating from it. Kai, still clinging to Zuo Chen's ankle, felt her legs being pulled off the ground and exclaimed in shock, the emperor is a man. You want even his crotch? She then cried out to Zuo Chen, Taoist master, I can't take it anymore. Zuo Chen patted Kai's head, and she immediately felt the suction force disappear completely. She got up and walked towards Zuo. You? Zuo's confident smile vanished upon seeing Zuo Chen completely unaffected, replaced by confusion and disbelief. The treasure bestowed upon him by the king of Kang could move mountains of gold and silver, and even a 1,000-pound stone could be sucked into the air. Why was this damned Taoist priest unaffected? Hey! Ha! Zuo exerted all his strength on the rice bowl, the rice whirling into the wind, billowing white smoke, but it was all in vain. Unconvinced, he swung his spinal sword at Zuo Chen. The blood snake coiled 7 or 8 times in the air, aiming to bite Zuo Chen's neck. Don't bring out such a demonic thing to embarrass yourself. Zuo Chen lightly patted the incoming spinal sword with the back of his hand, and the sword immediately shattered into pieces, all its evil energy dissipating. Zuo stared blankly at the spinal sword on the ground, then looked at the bloody hole in his hand, confirming he hadn't picked up the wrong weapon. This sword was specially crafted from a pure, untouched maiden, her tendons and skin removed, soaked in a special vat for 49 days, and finally forged from her spine. It was imbued with resentment and hatred, so much so that it would only pierce his palm and dry his blood if you held it in his hand. This longsword, which none of the retainers of the king prince dared to directly confront, was shattered into pieces by this young Taoist priest with just the back of his hand. Xuanmi was so anxious his blood was boiling. He didn't believe his opponent would let him go, knowing he had to fight to the death. But he had no suitable weapons, so he could only hold the rice bowl in both hands, yelling wildly, and smash it down on Zuo Chen's head. Zuo Chen neither dodged nor evaded, but extended his left hand, bent his middle finger, and flicked it against the bottom of the rice bowl. Crack! A crisp sound, like a stone slab splitting, rang out. In the blink of an eye, the rice bowl in Xuanmi's hand broke in two, one side scattering to the left and the other to the right. The rice inside spilled onto the ground, and then the objects that had been in the bowl scattered everywhere. Gold, white, things that looked like paintings, things that looked like bottles, things that looked like sacks, they shot into the sky like fireworks, then exploded with a crack, and fell to the ground like rain. Kai stared blankly at the sky for a long time before finally blurting out, "Oh my god. Money is falling." She wished she had a basin with her, otherwise she would have grabbed it and gone out to catch the silver. Silver. Xuanmi stared blankly at the sky, then suddenly screamed as if he had lost his mind, "My silver." He took a step to chase after the gold and silver valuables, but suddenly saw Zuo Chen standing behind him with a smile. "Monk, your life is intertwined with mine, so I will accept it." He raised his hand and pressed it directly onto Xuanmi's head. Before he could even scream, white smoke immediately billowed from Xuanmi's eyes and ears. He swayed twice before collapsing to the ground like a lump of mud. Zuo Chen withdrew his hand, suddenly realizing that he hadn't incurred any more sins, but rather gained merit. He raised an eyebrow. Killing such a heinous villain could earn merit? That was a good thing. Looking around, he saw the ground was now filled with dazzling treasures. While not quite as numerous as those in the white-headed lake underwater mansion, the sheer quantity was enough to make one's head spin. Kai couldn't resist the sight of the gold and silver jewels, hugging the glittering gold on the ground and grinning foolishly. Zuo Chen ignored Kai for the time being, instead squatting down beside the rice bowl on the ground and picking up the broken pieces. Putting the bowl back together, Zuo Chen noticed that the bottom was engraved with many patterns. He stared intently at the patterns, studying them carefully, remaining motionless. Even Kai, tired of handling gold, remained focused on the rice bowl. Seeing that it was completely dark, Kai first organized all the treasures around the donkey cart. Seeing that Zuo Chen was still in seclusion, although she knew the surrounding mountain spirits and monsters couldn't harm him, she still drew a circle around them with a stick, then placed several thick, round tree branches outside the circle, creating a makeshift shelter to ward off disaster. She then took a handful of soybeans and began studying them, successfully summoning 7 smaller versions of Kai to keep watch around Zuo Chen. She stayed there, watching until the stars filled the sky, until the moon was high, until she started yawning, until the 7 smaller Kai she had summoned were almost asleep. Finally, Zuo Chen smiled. "It's done." His words woke the still drowsy Kai. "Taoist master? What have you learned?" Kai asked Zuo Chen curiously, leaning closer. Zuo Chen smiled but didn't answer, instead going to the bamboo basket. He picked it up and infused it with some qi, following the patterns on the rice bowl. Then, he pointed the basket at the mountain of treasure piled beside him. "Go." With a soft shout, the gold and silver jewels seemed to grow legs, hopping and skipping into the bamboo basket. In just a few breaths, the entire pile was filled into the small bamboo basket. Kai was dumbfounded. She stared at the basket for a long time before finally managing to squeeze out, "My goodness, this skill can earn so much silver." Zuo Chen was also delighted. Just as he had guessed, the rice bowl contained remnants of a wondrous technique. He had spent some time studying it and had finally mastered a portion of this technique called "All Rivers Run into the Sea." This technique could be further developed, but the next steps required certain materials. If he wanted to master the Slave Universe technique, his Taoist robe would need to be re-embroidered with the finest natural materials. If he wanted to master the Palm Buddha Kingdom technique, he would need to temper his hands. With some time, he should be able to learn it. "It's getting late, let's go back to town first, and we'll leave the past tomorrow." Zuo Chen placed the bamboo basket on the carriage, beckoned Kai to get on, and Kai waved her sleeve, putting all her children back into the bag before happily boarding the carriage. The donkey cart swayed and rocked its way towards the town without stopping. The next morning, An Yi and An gathered at the entrance of Anming Temple, peering outside. Why haven't Master Zuo returned after waiting all night? The two monks were puzzled, feeling that things were slightly different from what they had expected. Just as the two of them were thinking about the young monks going down the mountain to look for the people, a messenger suddenly rushed up behind them. Abbot! Something terrible has happened, Abbot! The 5 masters inside the inner room are dead. What? Yi and were shocked. Chapter 41 Leaving the Seclusion. When Yi and arrived at a meticulously prepared upper room, they saw 5 pale-faced monks lying on the bed. Reaching out to touch them, they found no breath, no pulse, and their bodies were cold. What happened? Yi and were completely dumbfounded. They had been planning to ask Master Zuo for advice on matters concerning Prince Kang's retainers when he returned, but unexpectedly, in just one night, the 5 monks who carried Master Zuo's sedan chair had died. How were they going to explain this to the master when he returned? If he blamed them, how could their Enming temple withstand Prince Kang's wrath? The two were terrified, their faces almost matching the corpses on the bed. As they paced back and forth in the upper room, pondering a solution, a cook suddenly rushed in from outside. His face was grim, as if he wanted to tell the two men something, but Yi and were in no mood to care about him. They were about to wave him away when the cook urgently exclaimed, "Masters, something terrible has happened. The rice in our bins has turned to dust." Huh? What the hell was going on? The 2 men didn't care about anything else and rushed into the kitchen. When they got there, they found several monks squatting on the ground, retching. What they were vomiting was a yellowish-brown substance, some clumped together, some scattered on the ground. Lifting the lid of the tightly closed rice bin, they found that it wasn't filled with white rice at all, but layers and layers of yellow dust. This? Yi stared at the dust for a long time, then suddenly slapped his bald head as if he had just remembered something. Ouch, this is bad. Immediately afterward, he grabbed his still-dazed junior brother and ran straight to their secret little treasure trove. When they arrived at the treasury, they forcefully pried open the cellar door and rushed inside. But they immediately discovered the cellar was completely empty. They remembered the piles of silver, glittering gold, and treasures presented by wealthy merchants from all over the country that they had kept at the temple. The paintings and calligraphy were gone, the luminous pearl was gone, the antique vases were gone. Their savings of over 10 years were gone. Zuo. Yi couldn't even speak. His face flushed, his heart pounded, and a chill ran through his head. Then darkness enveloped him, and he collapsed backward, unconscious. Hurriedly helped his portly senior brother up, finally realizing what had happened. Zuo, I'll kill you. Er's eyes instantly turned blood red. This was hardly a stroke of good fortune. Clearly, they had brought disaster upon themselves. Zuo Chen and Kai spent the night at the town's inn. The next morning, after cutting some silver, they drove their donkey cart towards the border. Along the way, Zuo Chen explained some Taoist magic to Kai in a simple and easy-to-understand way. Kai listened with great attention, writing and taking notes in a small notebook, and asking Zuo Chen questions whenever she encountered something she didn't understand, a stark contrast to her previous boisterous demeanor. When the monk asked her why she was so different, Kai replied, "I'm not stupid. The Taoist priest is willing to teach me great supernatural powers. Things that no amount of money can buy. I'm not very bright, and if I don't listen carefully, I'll never have the chance to learn these powers." The monk thought she made sense. The donkey cart soon reached the border, where they could see the continuous city walls and the open gates in the distance. Zuo Chen stared at the city gate with a hint of doubt. "I thought this gate would be sealed." "I thought so at first too." The monk poked his head out from the relic and sighed. "When I led the villagers and saw the border gate open, I thought the people of Kingzhou were kind, opening it specifically to help the refugees from Xuzhou. But later I learned that the soldiers guarding the gate were using it to lure the Xuzhou refugees over, then shooting them all dead with arrows." "Then how did you get in, monk?" Kai asked. Since the soldiers guarding the gate would shoot arrows at the refugees, and the monk was a refugee at the time, why didn't he die? "I don't know either. I just kept running with my head down, and not a single arrow hit me. When I came to my senses, I was already inside the pass. A few soldiers came down from the city wall, and I thought they were going to stab me with their swords, but instead, they patted me on the shoulder and said I was lucky and blessed to have made it through a hail of arrows. They wouldn't stop me and let me go into the city to make a living. They even pointed out the road to Anming Temple to me." The monk said. Although the soldiers guarding the pass had killed the villagers he had brought, there was no hatred in his tone now, only a numb calm. No wonder Chief Escort Liu said that it's easy to leave the pass but hard to return. And to return through a hail of arrows, it really is quite difficult. After the conversation ended, the two men and Dan had arrived at the border. Looking around, there were many border guards. They weren't training, instead, they had set up tables inside the border, with wine and meat on them. Soldiers would often pass by, pick up a piece of meat, throw it into their mouths, and then grab a wine jug for a sip, quite carefree. Further in, there were several kitchens, with groups of cooks huddled together, puffing out their cheeks and blowing into the stoves to cook. Their arrival immediately attracted the attention of the border guards. There were few people here to begin with, and the soldiers usually didn't have much to do. The combination of a Taoist priest and a young virgin was even rarer, so they couldn't help but look at this place more often. Seeing the carriage continuing to head out of the pass, a young soldier couldn't sit still any longer and got up to go to the donkey cart. Taoist priest, you can't go to that place ahead. The young soldier stopped the donkey. That's Shuzhou, now a dead end. People there can't afford food, so they were no longer human. If you go to Shuzhou, you too will probably be stewed into meat. Thank you, sir. I've made some preparations. I should be able to get through Shuzhou smoothly, Zuo Chen said politely. His words drew laughter from the soldiers around him. The young soldier stopped trying to stop him and watched him drive the donkey cart away. Once the donkey cart was completely out of sight, the soldiers laughed and cursed. Trying to get through Shuzhou? You'll get your head chopped off halfway there. The Taoist priest has a young woman with him, quite the ladies-in-waiting. No one thought they could survive. Two delicate people, what ability could they possibly have to live? The border guards continued eating and drinking, forgetting about the Taoist priest and the girl. After a few rounds of drinks, when they were slightly tipsy, a fast horse suddenly appeared from the direction of Shuzhou. The guards were startled. They were about to draw their bows and shoot the rider off, but the man pulled a token from his robes. Who dares to act recklessly under the command of Prince Kang? Now that the token was out, the guards were caught in a dilemma. They were soldiers under Prince Shou, and soldiers are just soldiers. Prince Shou and Prince Kang were secretly at odds, but outwardly maintained amicable relations. If they were to kill Prince Kang's retainer, others might not know, but they themselves would likely lose their lives. In that brief moment of distraction, the rider had already reached the border. He dismounted, and the guards immediately approached. Sir, what brings you here? The rider asked coldly, staring at the soldiers. Someone has killed a retainer of Prince Kang. We've come to investigate. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Who Killed Zhenmi? Chang Hunjiang rode his horse swiftly to Anming town. He dismounted and went into a tavern, slapping a silver ingot on the table and loudly calling out, "A bowl of wine." The waiter, seeing the travel-worn man, the knife at his waist, and the fierce look on his face, knew he was not to be trifled with. He immediately bowed and scraped, then went to the back to fetch a full bowl of wine and brought it to the table. Chang Hunjiang gulped down 3 mouthfuls, finally feeling much better. He had received his mission from Prince Kang the previous night and had rushed to King's Hao without stopping, without even having time to rest. Even his robust physique felt exhausted. But the matter was urgent. The world was in chaos, with warlords each ruling their own territory, none wanting to remain peacefully. Everyone could see that this was the perfect opportunity to vie for power. So the princes seized land and fought wars, buying horses and recruiting soldiers. Some were loyal to the emperor, some declared themselves emperors, and others remained peaceful in their regions. They were in such a chaotic mess that they were practically fighting tooth and nail. Shuzhou and King's Hao were adjacent, belonging to the territories of Prince Kang and Prince Shou, respectively. Prince Shou, who should have been content to hold on to the wealthy King's Hao and fill his pockets, had recently been up to some strange schemes. His great lake had begun to emanate an eerie, sinister aura, and ghostly figures were lurking at the border. Prince Kang's chief priest performed rituals, spending 7 days before finally discovering that Prince Shou was using the entire territory of King's Hao as a platform to build a ritual altar. This was no small matter. How powerful would a ritual altar built on the land of an entire prefecture be? Others might not know, but how could Prince Kang not know? So Prince Kang hurriedly dispatched the monk Zuanmi to King Zhao to gather intelligence. Everything seemed normal until then, but then, Zuanmi died. Each of King Kang's retainers possessed a soul lamp, which extinguished upon death. Unlike birdsong, which carried messages slowly, or incense, which required time to reach King Kang, the soul lamp extinguished instantly. More importantly, its extinguishing wasn't ordinary. According to the warehouse worker who guarded the storeroom that night, a gentle breeze blew from the morning hall where the soul lamps were placed, and grass grew around the area. When the worker went in to investigate, he found Zuanmi's soul lamp extinguished. Upon hearing this, King Kang immediately ordered Chang Henjiang to investigate who had killed Zuanmi. After downing a bowl of wine, Chang Henjiang wanted some beef, but there were no old, dead cows nearby, so the innkeeper couldn't cut it. He instead asked for some dried salted fish to eat with steamed rice. After eating 8 fish and drinking 3 bowls of wine, Chang Henjiang, without even checking if the silver on the table was enough, grabbed a knife and left. The waiter didn't dare stop him. Only after he had walked a distance did he call the shopkeeper to weigh the food on a small scale. It was half a coin short. As Chang Henjiang was leaving, he grabbed a nearby candied hawthorn vendor and blurted out, "Are there any wealthy temples around here?" The vendor, startled by his menacing appearance, trembled and pointed to Anming Temple not far away. Chang Henjiang didn't waste any words, leaving the vendor behind and heading towards the mountain. Chang Henjiang wasn't very close to Zuanmi, but he knew that the man loved to sneak into wealthy temples to swindle people. Who knew that if Zuanmi was caught stealing, the monks might get angry and beat him to death? Climbing 666 steps from the bottom of the mountain, Chang Henjiang finally arrived at the entrance of Anming Temple. Upon arriving, he saw the temple looking dejected, the monks all with grim faces, as if they had suffered some great injustice. Seeing this, he knew that Zuanmi must have been there. So he went straight in and loudly asked, "Where's your abbot?" The monks inside were startled by this uninvited guest. They looked at each other in bewilderment, and finally, one of them, quick-witted, ran to the inner courtyard to call on Yianener. A short while later, an Yianener, their faces full of resentment, came out. They looked Chang Henjiang up and down, their tone unfriendly. "Benefactor, what brings you here? Our temple doesn't accept people with such a fierce aura as you. Has Zuanmi been here before?" Hearing Chang Henjiang's question, An Yi immediately perked up. "What's your relationship with him?" "He's a retainer, and I also work for Prince Kang. That's all." He immediately grabbed Chang Henjiang by the collar, cursing, "So, you know that stinking monk? He stole all the money from our temple. If you don't give us an explanation, you're not leaving the mountain today." As he spoke, his hand was already close to Chang Henjiang's collar. Suddenly, a flash of cold light appeared, and An Yi felt a chill on his neck. His vision blurred, and he rolled several times on the ground. In a single exchange, An Yi's hand, which was reaching for Chang Henjiang's collar, and his bald head were both severed. An Yi, seemingly still in shock after being beheaded, blinked twice on the ground. Only then did he realize he was dead. Large tears slid down his cheeks, and he lived no more. "Senior brother!" An screamed, scrambling to his knees before his headless senior brother. He was caught between tears and cries, his body trembling uncontrollably. Before he could even utter a mournful cry, he suddenly felt something being held against his neck. Did Zuanmi associate with anyone before he died? Chang Henjiang's voice was icy. An face turned pale with fright, and the area between his thighs quickly became damp, soaking the surrounding ground and mixing with An Yi's blood. "No, no." An tears fell in a steady stream. "Think quickly," Chang Henjiang shouted, "or I'll chop off your head." An brain was practically steaming when he finally stammered, A little monk in my temple said that Master Zuanmi hurriedly left after hearing a Taoist priest and a woman come to the door." "A Taoist priest? A woman?" "It's possible that Zuanmi saw the woman sneak out, but what about this Taoist priest? What did they look like? Where did they go?" "I don't know. The little monk in our temple was kicked to death by the master. And begged for mercy, 'Grandpa, spare me. Grandpa, spare me.' That's all I know." Tisk. Seeing the clue gone, Chang Henjiang was annoyed. Seeing An crying, he drew his sword and chopped off An's head. The monks nearby were terrified, some huddled together, others knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Chang Henjiang. Chang Henjiang sneered, saying, "Zuanmi is dead, and now we can't catch the murderer. Someone has to bear the consequences. Perfect timing. This precious sword needs to cultivate its murderous aura. You'll be perfect for sacrificing to it. He walked to the courtyard, slammed the gate shut, and bolted it shut. Instantly, screams erupted from Anming Temple, and blood flowed down the threshold. A murderous aura filled the air, and the blood-red light seemed to reach the sky. Everyone in the town could almost see the rising blood mist. Half an hour later, the gate was pushed open again, and Cheng Henjiang, covered in blood and carrying a large sword, walked out. Taoists and women, where the hell are we going to find that? He muttered to himself. Chapter 43. A stalk of wheat. As the donkey cart entered Xuzhou, the surrounding scenery immediately changed. The lush yellow-green grass and flowing rivers that were still visible in Qingzhou vanished upon entering Xuzhou, leaving only a murky brown, a dry yellow, and patches of black on the ground. It was the color of shattered flesh, flowing blood, scattered bones, and the accumulated remains of the dead. Zuo Chen's gaze swept around, and in his eyes, the entire land seemed to emanate a desolate, ghostly aura. He frowned slightly. Something was wrong. This didn't seem like a simple famine. Although the aura on the ground was weak, Zuo Chen knew he couldn't possibly cover an entire prefecture. Yet, it didn't feel like something from a simple ritual. Zuo Chen felt a strange and eerie feeling, but couldn't quite put his finger on it. The donkey cart gradually moved deeper into Xuzhou, and the surrounding colors became increasingly pure and monotonous. Looking up, there was a boundless blue sky. Looking down, there was only a sea of red. The official road, once lush and verdant with trees covering the mountainsides, is now nothing but barren peaks. Even the few trees occasionally seen planted by the roadside have had their bark stripped off below a person's height. An overwhelming sense of oppression washes over you. The golden boy and jade girl figures hidden in Zuo Chen's sleeves stopped playing and causing a ruckus, obediently huddled inside, peeking out with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The monk's shadow also emerges from the relic. He sees his former homeland and sighs 3 times. When will this wilderness finally end? Kai stared at the tree stripped of its bark, swallowing hard. Monk, did you survive on this back then? Yes. The monk smiled, a smile that was hard to tell if it was helplessness or numbness. What else was there to eat back then? Being able to peel a piece of bark from this tree was considered a sign of wealth. But you know what, girl, the bark, once stewed until soft, actually tasted quite good. It was like drinking tea. If you added a handful of coarse salt, it would be like being in heaven in Xuzhou. You could chew on it for half a day without feeling hungry. My goodness. Kai had sometimes experienced hunger, going through periods of uncertainty, but she had at most eaten a cornbread a day, which was still considered filling. She could never have devoured the stewed bark in so many ways. Besides the bark, what else did you eat back then? Listening to the monk's description, Kai was timid yet curious, cautiously asking questions while shrinking back in. There's a lot, the monk said. Wheat husks, corn stalks, after the rice is gone, you can only eat what's left. Oh, some soil is edible, that yellowish kind. After being thoroughly watered, it's like mud. Some people find it fragrant, some find it bitter. Guanayin's oil is inedible, although it's filling, but perhaps Guanayin Bodhisattva doesn't allow others to beg from her. Those who steal Guanayin's oil will indeed feel full first, then their stomachs will swell up round and round, they won't be able to defecate, and they'll just die from suffocation. Alright, Kai waved her hands repeatedly, terrifying. Terrifying. The monk just chuckled and stopped talking. The carriage continued forward, and the monk suddenly called out, "What's that?" Zuo Chen's gaze turned in that direction. He saw a lone ear of wheat growing in the wilderness. It was golden. He drove his cart to the wheat stalk, picked it up from the ground by the root, and looked around. Besides this one stalk, there was nothing else. I didn't expect this grain to survive, the monk remarked with some emotion. Perhaps it was a seed left behind by a wealthy merchant fleeing to Qingzhou. It wasn't eaten by the refugees, nor by locusts, it's lucky. Zuo Chen, however, held the wheat stalk silently, lost in thought. He returned to his cart, still holding the wheat stalk. Kai, finding it strange, asked Zuo Chen, "Master, is there anything special about this wheat stalk?" "Nothing special, just ordinary millet." Zuo Chen shook his head, still holding it. "I have something I want to test, so I'll take it with me." Kai didn't know what Zuo Chen was going to do, but she knew he was capable, so she remained silent, lying on the donkey cart's plank, deep in thought. Continuing along the road, they suddenly spotted a shop ahead. Zuo Chen felt a chill run down his spine at first glance. There must have been many deaths here. This is a notorious black market inn in the area, the monk chimed in. When we were running this way, people on the road told us about it. They said the shopkeeper was originally a law-abiding citizen, but after the famine, he had no choice but to sell rice and meat. But they seem to still have some sense of decency. They only kill those who enter the shop, and if they don't leave, they don't bother them. Zuo Chen sighed slightly. This world really makes the living worse than ghosts. But when they drove past the shop, they found it empty. Zuo Chen circulated his spiritual energy and observed carefully, slightly surprised. No living people? He strained his eyes to look more closely and then discovered a couple lying on the floor, long dead. They had starved to death. Even the black market owner of the rice and meat shop had starved to death. The monk peered inside and, seeing the two corpses, sighed. They didn't escape. The donkey cart set off, and no one spoke again. When Zuo Chen first heard Liu Lazy talk about the Great Famine in Xuzhou, he hadn't felt it so acutely. After all, it was hard to discern the severity of the devastation from mere words. Now, seeing it for himself, he understood just how heavy the weight of the phrase people eating each other from historical records truly was. They swayed and staggered from day to night. On the road, there wasn't a single person, not even an animal. The crows were gone, they'd been shot down and eaten with slingshots. The earthworms were gone, the ground had been dug up 3 feet deep and eaten. The desolation was terrifying. As the sun dipped below the branches, Zuo Chen was about to stop the cart and spend the night nearby when he suddenly noticed flickering lights in the distance. Looking over, he discovered a village had sprung up in this wasteland, brightly lit, as if a banquet was being held, a lively affair. Zuo Chen could tell at a glance that the village was filled with ghostly energy, a veritable village of the dead. He wasn't surprised, so many people had died in this area, it would be strange if there weren't ghosts. But Zuo Chen immediately sensed a faint trace of life in the very center of the village, as if several living people had accidentally drowned there. After a moment's thought, Zuo Chen reined in his donkey. Let's go into the village. Kai was slightly taken aback. Taoist priest? That's clearly a ghost village. You want to exorcise it to accumulate merit? Actually, I wanted to find a few locals to ask about the situation, Zuo Chen said. Please read and vote, everyone. I'm bowing to you all. Chapter 44 Peach Blossom Village. The donkey cart moved forward and soon arrived near the village. However, the donkey seemed to have smelled something amiss and stubbornly refused to go in. Zuo Chen gently tapped its head, and only then did the donkey reluctantly continue. Upon reaching the village entrance, Zuo Chen could see the village's layout. Wooden houses stood side by side, roads were neat, and peach trees grew all around. Every household had lights on, creating a lively atmosphere. Many villagers, with their white hair and children's hair in a bun, lined the roadside, looking content. Seeing the donkey cart approaching, the villagers cast curious glances, but their enthusiasm returned when they saw people on board. Soon, a young man, dressed in simple farmer's clothes, approached. He walked to the donkey cart, saw Zuo Chen and Kai inside, and smiled, saying, "May I ask where Miss Chen comes from?" "From King Zhao, on her way to Yao Zhao, passing through Xuzhou," Zuo Chen replied. "This journey is quite long," the young man exclaimed in amazement, then added with a smile, "Then, Taoist, you must explore Xuzhou more. Xuzhou is a beautiful place, with picturesque mountains and clear waters, and the girls are quite lovely." He glanced at Kai, his face flushing red, "But none of them are as lovely as the girl behind you." Kai was praised, but she felt no joy at all. Xuzhou was now so desolate, yet the young man said he wanted to explore it more, praising its picturesque scenery. The mountains and rivers had been almost completely eaten away. What beauty was there left? Heaven knows what this young man was seeing. "Has something good happened in the village?" Zuo Chen asked, pointing towards the depths of the village. "I see a long table set up over there." Indeed, a long table was set up in the very center of the village, surrounded by a large group of people. The whole village was bustling around there. Although, in the middle of the night, the bustling activity was somewhat strange. "Hey! You two have come at the right time." The young man's face lit up with a smile upon hearing Zuo Chen's question. "A distinguished guest visited our village this year. Under his guidance, we planted peach trees, and this year's harvest is bountiful. We're currently holding a grand banquet to celebrate." If you two have some free time, why don't you join us for a seat? And try some of our village's peaches? Of course, no problem. Zuo Chen got out of the carriage, tied the donkey to a peach tree, and gently tapped its head twice. The previously restless and timid donkey suddenly seemed to gain immense confidence, straightening its spine and raising its head. Kai found this intriguing and, after a moment's observation, discovered that Zuo Chen had imbued the donkey with an extremely faint trace of qi. She was greatly shocked. She hadn't expected this beast to be so clever. Could following a Taoist priest really make one's brain grow? Would I become smarter too? Without much thought, Kai followed Zuo Chen, and they soon arrived at the center of the village. Upon arrival, they saw a long table with 2 neat rows of plates filled with large, glistening, red peaches. A large, noisy crowd had gathered, young and old, strong and thin, chatting animatedly and smiling broadly. The young man led Zuo Chen and Kai to the end of the table, where Zuo Chen noticed 4 unusual young men sitting. Their clothing was completely different from the villagers. The villagers were contented farmers, able to mend their own clothes, while these 4 were refugees fleeing famine, their clothes patched and torn, their faces sallow and thin, yet their bellies large. 3 of them were already wolfing down the peaches in front of them, juice dripping from their lips, their eyes gleaming red. The young farmer looked at them and smiled. You guests have already started eating. Eat quickly, eat as much as you like. We don't have much else in the village, but we have plenty of peaches. He then looked at Zuo Chen and his companion. Please take your seats here. Our distinguished guests will be seated at the main table soon, and the banquet will begin. With that, he turned and left, disappearing into the crowd of villagers, his whereabouts unknown. Zuo Chen approached the 3 outsiders who were eating peaches, glanced at them, and then shook his head. Taoist priest? They're beyond saving? Kai understood Zuo Chen's meaning but was somewhat puzzled. Even though Wang Erniu's head had been twisted in confusion, Zuo Chen had managed to bring him back to reality. These 3 clearly looked lively and energetic, yet the Taoist priest shook his head. They're beyond saving, Zuo Chen said. They look alive, but they're actually already dead. Back then, whether it was Liu Lazy or Wang Erniu, they were either seriously injured or had only recently died, their souls and spirits still within their bodies. I could have mended them and given them a breath of innate qi, and pulled them back from the brink of death. But these 3 are no good. Their souls and spirits have already been devoured. If I were to blow qi, they would collapse on the spot. His gaze then fell on the last person. This was also a young man, not very old, and he seemed to have suffered the least from hunger. He was thin, but his belly wasn't round. He seemed to be in a half-dreaming, half-awake state, his eyes glazed over as he stared at the large peach in front of him, drooling. Zuo Chen moved closer to him and patted his shoulder. The young man immediately became more alert. He turned to look at Zuo Chen and asked, Who are you? I am a passing Taoist priest. Who are you for? How did you get here? He tilted his head, as if struggling to think of his name, and finally a look of realization appeared on his face. I'm Zuo Chen, from Changshan Town, Xiuzhou. We came out to find grain. We think we saw a village on the way, and then this happened. Zuo Chen turned to look at his compatriots who had come in with him, and saw them burying their heads in peaches, tearing them apart and biting them, looking more like ghosts than humans. He was shocked. What's wrong with them? He looked at the bright red peaches in front of him. What kind of peach is this? It smells like meat to me? At this point, perhaps because he was extremely hungry, his stomach grumbled, and his clear eyes were once again enveloped by hunger, as if he reached out to grab a peach. Zuo Chen patted his head, and Zuo Chen cried out, opening his eyes again, where were the bright red peaches that were used to move tables? In front of him was clearly a bowl, with a huge ball of meat inside. The fleshy mass, covered in veins, throbbed and pulsed, emanating a putrid stench that assaulted Zuo Chen's nostrils. Looking around, he saw no villagers seated at the tables on either side. Instead, incense burners were piled high, each holding 4 sticks of incense, unevenly spaced. This wasn't a feast for the living. It was a feast for the dead. A gust of wind blew, and Zuo Chen was transported back to the bustling scene of the village, but a chill ran down his spine. His entire body felt cold. Chapter 45 The Seed of the Dead. Zuo Chen felt as if what he had just witnessed was real, and even the peaches before him now seemed nauseating and horrifying. Just one glance was enough to bring back the image of the peaches in his mind, causing Zuo Cheng's stomach to churn and nearly vomiting acid. What is this thing? Zuo Cheng's face turned deathly pale, and he almost rolled off his chair in fright. He looked at his three companions beside him and saw that they seemed to have eaten their fill, lying motionless on the table, their bellies even more rounded, as if they were pregnant. Brother Zhao, Brother Liu? Zuo Cheng shook the motionless men. Third brother? What's wrong with you? Seeing that he couldn't shake them, Zuo Cheng turned to Zuo Chen for help. When I came here, they were already dead, Zuo Chen said. Hearing this, Zuo Cheng felt as if his spine had been removed, and he slunk back into his chair, staring blankly at the wooden table. Master Taoist, what exactly happened to this village? And why are my friends here? Zuo Cheng was filled with doubt and confusion, completely baffled as to why things had turned out this way in the blink of an eye. Familiar faces were dead, and all around him were incomprehensible ghosts. He was filled with terror and his mind was in turmoil. Zuo Chen could tell that the young man's soul had been damaged by grief and fear. He was about to say a few words of comfort when he suddenly saw an old man walking out from the head table not far away, so he remained silent for the time being. The old man came to the front of the table, holding a wine cup in his hand, his face beaming. The village is filled with joy, and harmony brings prosperity. Thanks to the benefactor who has brought us to our village, our lives are getting better day by day. We are holding this banquet today to thank heaven and earth, and also to thank the benefactor who has brought wealth to our village. May we have good harvests every year, and may our crops grow tall. The villagers below also cheered and laughed, clapping their hands loudly. Their movements were so perfectly synchronized, as if someone were supporting them with a wooden stick. Zuo Cheng had no idea what they were drinking, he only imagined it to be a joyous occasion, yet it felt eerily unsettling. This old man has been talking too much, the old village chief said, stepping aside. Behind him emerged a woman in a white dress. This woman had gentle features and a tender, graceful demeanor. The white dress clung to her, making her look charming. A beauty mark at the corner of her eye added to her allure. The village men couldn't take their eyes off her. Married men had their ears pulled by their wives, while unmarried men were glared at by the elders. Her beauty was striking, even the women couldn't help but glance at her. She was like a lotus emerging from the water. Zuo Chen also looked at this woman a few more times. Not because she was beautiful, but because she was a living person. The village was eerily quiet. Anyone who came here, unless they had stumbled upon it by mistake, was likely connected to the village's strange and bizarre phenomena. The woman stood before the platform, bowed slightly, and surveyed the villagers. Her gaze swept over them, finally settling on Zuo Chen at the very end of the table. She stared for 3 or 4 seconds before looking away. Today's feast is too grand for further rambling. I hope everyone will raise a glass in celebration, wishing for ever-improving days ahead. The woman spoke softly, her tone gentle and even, as if veiled and clothed, making one want to fall asleep. After her speech, she raised her glass, and the villagers, seemingly infected by the atmosphere, joined in, drinking heartily. The woman, however, did not drink. She looked again at Zuo Chen, a smile on her face. I didn't expect to have such a distinguished guest from outside the village today. Why not join us for a drink and some fun? She raised her glass to Zuo Chen. In an instant, the surrounding villagers stopped what they were doing. The children ceased their noise, the elderly stopped their conversations, and the young and middle-aged men stopped their boasting and joking. They all turned around to look at Zuo Chen and his group. Their faces all wore the same identical smiles, their lips slightly upturned, revealing 8 teeth. The noisy, bustling scene abruptly turned into a deathly silence, with only the low whistling of the night wind remaining. Why not raise a cup? Let's drink peach wine together. The old man's aged, cracked lips, the girl's rosy, moist lips, the young man's slightly yellowed teeth, everyone in the village's lips touched together at the same time, shouting loudly. This scene left Zuo Cheng utterly bewildered. But he noticed that the 2 people who had arrived showed no unusual reaction, calmly exchanging glances with the woman in the white dress. This wine isn't very good. It looks cloudy, probably made with poor quality ingredients, too dirty. I won't drink it for now, I'm afraid I'll get sick. Zuo Chen extended his left hand towards Kie, palm up. Kie immediately understood Zuo Chen's meaning, quickly took the gourd of wine from her waist, bent down, and respectfully placed it in Zuo Chen's palm. Taking the gourd, Zuo Chen opened the cap, took an empty bowl in front of him, poured a small cup into it, and then lifted the bowl forward slightly. My wine is quite good. Today is a joyous occasion for the villagers, so I should offer them a cup and let them taste what good wine is like. Gently turning the bowl, he poured the wine out, the transparent liquid forming a thin line. The liquid in the bowl was clearly not much, but with Zuo Chen's movement, it seemed like a vast ocean, flowing endlessly. In an instant, the liquid, like a wave, splashed onto all the villagers. The villagers, who had maintained their uniform smiles, all let out blood-curdling screams after touching the wine in the bowl. Flesh and blood melted like warm snow, revealing the bare bones beneath the skin. Then, the bones turned into wisps of white smoke, swirling and rising into the air. The pouring of the wine was like the wailing of ghosts and the screams of wolves. In the blink of an eye, the entire group of villagers vanished. The sound of bubbles bursting echoed in the air, and the prosperous and bright scene around them vanished. Where was the once prosperous peach tree village, flourishing because of the arrival of a nobleman? The surrounding area was clearly not even a mass grave. A large open wasteland was littered with incense sticks, the burning incense extinguished by the spilled incense, and the clay mixed into clumps of mud, rotting into lumps. The woman in the white dress was completely unprepared for this scene. It was as if someone had struck her chest with a hammer. Her face changed drastically, her already fair complexion turning even more ashen. She coughed twice, wiped her mouth with her hand, and looked down. A pool of blood had already appeared on her palm. Surprise flashed in her eyes. Taoist master, you truly possess great skill. I've traveled through Shuzhou for so long, and this is the first time I've seen someone break my formation with just a sip of wine. A mere trick, nothing to boast about. Zuo Chen returned the wine gourd to Kie. Hearing Zuo Chen's words, the woman felt a surge of anger. Your little trick broke the formation I'd prepared for so long. What am I then? Useless? Suppressing her anger, the woman asked again, I haven't seen your face before, Taoist master. Do you have a Taoist name? I'm just a Taoist priest. There's no need to inquire about Taoist names. Zuo Chen didn't answer the woman's question but instead asked, as for you, your actions are rather sneaky. What are you planning to do? Chapter 46 by Fanglin. Seeing that Zuo Chen had no intention of answering, the woman could only sigh deeply. If the Taoist master is unwilling to speak, then so be it. As for me, she wanted to speak to cover her tracks, but accidentally met Zuo Chen's eyes. In an instant, she felt her heart tremble violently, as if her entire being had been struck in the face by an invisible figure with a club, her ears ringing. My name is Bai Fanglin, a person from the Don't Forget sect. She abruptly stopped speaking. Bai Fanglin, a good name indeed, but unfortunately, her conduct is not very upright. Zuo Chen shook his head and sighed, commenting, as for Don't Forget, would you be interested in reciting it to me? Looking at Zuo Chen with astonishment, Bai Fanglin was filled with surprise. What kind of technique was that? Did he intimidate my entire being? And there was no altar in sight. Could a simple glance achieve such an effect? Composing herself, Bai Fanglin became extremely wary, clutching some life-saving treasures in her hands. Instead of directly answering Zuo Chen's question, she casually found an empty wooden stake in the surrounding wasteland, brushed the dust off it with her sleeve, rolled up her skirt, and sat down. She then said, I heard you say you came from King Zhao, Taoist master. Seeing that you and the young lady beside you are dressed neatly and elegantly, you shouldn't have suffered much hardship. What are your thoughts on this Shuzhou region, Taoist master? Do you think it's a place of famine? Do you agree that the young man still alive beside you is pitiful? Seeing that Zuo Chen didn't seem inclined to answer, Bai Fanglin continued, I have traveled among men, seeking to alleviate suffering and overcome difficulties. Unfortunately, my abilities are insufficient to restore crops to Shuzhou. So I created this ghost village here, allowing the starving dead to eat peaches and drink wine in their dreams. But unexpectedly, Taoist master, you came and killed them all with a single sip of wine. Her words were tinged with reproach, as if to say, Master, it's all because of you that an entire village has been wiped out. After saying this, Bai Fanglin looked at Zuo Chen, only to see him picking his ear with his little finger, seemingly not listening to her at all. A surge of anger welled up in Bai Fanglin's heart. This damn Taoist priest, so infuriating. Master, since you've slaughtered this entire village, do you have any good way to quell this chaos in Shuzhou? Letting corpses float everywhere and blood flow like rivers, Bai Fanglin bluntly pressed Zuo Chen for answers. Completely ignoring her, Zuo Chen looked directly at Zuo Changcheng. You came out of town to search for food. Were you seeking death or life, huh? Zuo Chen hadn't expected this to be related to him, so he said, of course, I was seeking life. There are still so many villagers in town, and my mother is waiting for me to go back and save her. If I were seeking death, why would I risk coming out? There are no shelters outside to keep out the wind and rain. Wouldn't it be better to just starve to death under the blue-tiled roofs of the town? And what about your friends? Zuo Chen pointed to the 3 dead men on the ground. They must be in the same boat as you. Of course. Zuo Chen looked at his dead brothers, his face growing even darker. They've been friends since childhood. They're a few years older than me. They always protected and cared for me. When we left, the villagers gave us several flatbreads. Halfway there, they gave me some, saying they were full and wanted me to keep them. But they weren't full. They gave me their last flatbread. We've gone through so much trouble. How could we possibly be here to die? Zuo Chen nodded, and finally said to Bai Fanglin, you see, you lied to these 4 that they came here to live. She and I came all the way from Kingzhou in a donkey cart. We couldn't have come here to die. But you've already killed 3, and you plan to kill the 3 of us who are left too. Zuo Chen paused for a moment, then said, Miss, according to you, are you seeking death or seeking life? Bai Fanglin's expression changed several times, finally turning grim. Those kept in the Taoist temple are indeed no idle people, their magical abilities are great, and their verbal skills are equally sharp. I am still alive, naturally to help more people reach the other shore of bliss. If there is no more suffering in Xuzhou, I will naturally follow them. Then she looked at Zuo Chen. How do you want to live? 3 days without a grain of food? Come with me to the land of bliss, where every meal is filled with meat and wine, and beautiful women accompany you. No, no. Zuo Chen shook his head repeatedly. I still need to find food to go back and save my mother, and the mothers of the other 3. Bring your mother to the land of bliss too, then she can have enough to eat, right? Bai Fanglin said again. Zuo Chen thought about the paradise Bai Fanglin mentioned, and then about his own mother, and suddenly became furious. You want to kill my mother? Bai Fanglin. He couldn't continue. We have different paths, so we can't work together. Taoist master, you have different ideas from me, so please leave. You go your way, and I'll go mine. She adopted a posture of seeing him off, but Zuo Chen chuckled. Taoist master? Bai Fanglin frowned. You've been practicing Gu and raising evil spirits here, planting evil trees and absorbing spiritual energy for more than just a day or 2, haven't you? Don't make false accusations. Bai Fanglin's expression changed slightly. If you can't reason with me, then leave. Do you think you can kill me here? Kai glanced at her and muttered, you wanted our lives back then, but now that Taoist master is showing his power, you're backing down. You're like a prostitute trying to maintain a virtuous image. You. Bai Fanglin glared at Kai, but her altar had just been destroyed by Zuo Chen, and she didn't know the birth dates of the people who had come here. Lacking any means to kill them, she could only clutch her life-saving items even tighter. Zuo Chen walked to a spot on the wasteland, lightly stomped his foot, and a small shadow sprang from the soil. He reached out and grabbed it, placing it directly in his palm. He then opened his palm, revealing a peach pit, its surface glistening with a reddish sheen. Seeing the peach pit in Zuo Chen's hand, Bai Fanglin's previous calm and collected demeanor vanished instantly. She abruptly stood up from the wooden stake, her eyes wide, her pretty face filled with disbelief. Ever since I entered Xuzhou, I felt something was wrong. This land, which should have been fertile, has been corrupted by someone, filled with barren and ghostly energy. Only after meeting you did I realize that the evil people and demons of this world not only cultivate ghosts, but also cultivate the earth. Zuo Chen sneered. How many forests have you eaten to get this walnut? How much land was created? How many people in your never forget are devouring the land of Xuzhou? The paradise you speak of is nothing more than turning reality into a mess, turning the starving into hungry ghosts, and driving them into slavery and soldiers? What kind of ability does this Taoist have? He actually saw through the situation in Xuzhou? Her gaze then fell on the walnut, knowing that it was more important than her own life. Bai Fanglin was in a state of turmoil, and she didn't care how high the Taoist's skills were. She only had time to shout, "Give it back to me," before rushing towards Zuo Chen. You want this evil thing? Zuo Chen pressed 2 fingers on the walnut and pinched it down hard. Cracks immediately appeared on the entire walnut. Keeping this evil thing will only bring disaster to the area. Crack! The walnut shattered into pieces, scattering in all directions. The ghostly energy contained within dissipated under bursts of thunder, emitting a burnt smell. Ah! The walnut was destroyed. Bai Fanglin clutched her face, screaming hysterically as she tore at her skin. But after only 2 screams, her body convulsed, and she collapsed to the ground. She hadn't even used any means to save her life, she died just like that. Chapter 47 Never Forget Each Other. Zuo Chang borrowed a fire from Zuo Chen and burned his 3 friends alive. Watching the flames dance before him, Zuo Chang felt a burning pain in his face and remained silent. After the bodies were burned, Zuo Chang used a roadside stone to smash the bones, grabbed a handful of ashes, wrapped them in a small cloth bag, and spat fiercely nearby Fanglin's corpse before turning to face Zuo Chen. He knelt down before Zuo Chen with a thud and kowtowed 3 times in quick succession. I will never forget your life-saving grace, Taoist Master. I have nothing else to give you but my life. However, I must continue south to find food for my mother and to provide sustenance for the people in the town. I simply cannot give you my life first. I hope you can tell me where I should look for you in the future so that I can repay your kindness. Your town is further north, right? Zuo Chen asked. Is it close to Yaozhao? Huh? Yaozhao? Zuo Chang didn't know why Zuo Chen suddenly asked this, so he could only honestly answer, our town is right in the middle of Shuzhou, the same distance from Yaozhao and the same distance from Qingzhou. I heard that there is plenty of good rice in Qingzhou, so I plan to head there. We are going to Yaozhao. We happen to have some food on the cart. Let's go together. Zuo Chen said. Kie happened to be leading a donkey cart over, and Zuo Chang also looked at the donkey cart. In his eyes, there was only a bamboo basket on the donkey cart, and no grain at all. He was a little anxious. Master Taoist, our town has a large population, hundreds of mouths waiting to be fed. I believe in your abilities, but your grain. Is it enough to feed all of us? He swallowed his words, not daring to say them aloud. Don't worry. The Master Taoist's abilities are greater than you've heard, more formidable than you've seen. Following the Master Taoist guarantees a continuous supply of grain, Kie said with a grin. Only then did Zuo Chang, still puzzled, get into the cart. As the donkey cart started moving, Zuo Chang, not daring to take up much space on the board, curled up. Seeing him starving, Zuo Chen opened the bamboo basket and scooped out a large bowl of rice. The rice was still raw when it first entered the bowl, but by the time it was placed in front of Zuo Chang, it was fully cooked, steaming hot, a bowl of porridge with broth. Zuo Chang had never seen such a thing before. How could he not know how precious a bowl of porridge was in Shuzhou? He immediately wanted to kneel down and kowtow, but Zuo Chen stopped him. Don't break the cart boards if you kowtow on it, Zuo Chen said. Besides, from now on, it'll be 3 meals a day. If I give you rice every time, and you kowtow every time, do you even want your head anymore? Zuo Chang didn't know what to say. He blankly accepted the rice, and Kie handed him a pair of chopsticks made of wooden strips. Holding the porridge in his left hand and a spoon in his right, Zuo Chang hadn't eaten so formally in a long time. His fingers clumsily stuck the spoon into the rice and scooped out a mouthful. The white rice entered his mouth, and he chewed it gently, finding it incredibly sweet, like jade, a delicacy from the heavens. Tears suddenly streamed down his face. When he first embarked on the journey to find rice, he didn't cry when he finished the cakes because he was already used to hunger. He didn't cry when his 3 fellow villagers died because too many people in the town had died. But after eating the rice, he couldn't stop his tears. He ate and cried and ate, until the rice tasted somewhat bitter. He ate the plain porridge with relish, without any toppings, finishing it in less than 10 breaths. After filling his stomach with the porridge, Zuo Chang even wanted to lick it clean. Zuo Chen took the bowl and gave him another, but Zuo Chang, seemingly out of his mind, didn't even have time to thank him before grabbing the bowl and starting to eat again. When someone is starving and suddenly sees food, their instincts are easily swayed. No one is an exception. He ate 5 bowls before stopping, his reason returning. He gave an awkward laugh, about to thank Zuo Chen, when suddenly a sharp pain shot through his stomach. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted. Seeing Zuo Chang lying on the board, Kie was dumbfounded. She looked at Zuo Chen, unsure what to do. Zuo Chen sighed and tapped Zuo Chang's head with his finger, rousing him from his reverie. After regaining consciousness, Zuo Chen repeatedly touched his body to make sure he was alright before sitting up. This time, his gaze towards Zuo Chen was truly as if he were looking at a deity. Just now, Zuo Chen didn't know what had happened to him. He felt like his mind had gone mad, completely out of control. Being hungry for too long has caused demons to grow in your heart. Hearing this, Zuo Chen lowered his head, like a child who had made a mistake. Zuo Chen had no intention of scolding or lecturing Zuo Chen. He knew very well that it would be strange if someone starved to this extent didn't have demons in their heart. It was easy to criticize the suffering people when you were not on their shoes. Finding the root of the problem and then solving it was the most important thing. Even if there was no merit to be gained this time, Zuo Chen intended to meddle in this matter. It had nothing to do with whether he was kind-hearted or not. Zuo Chen simply felt uncomfortable seeing someone causing such chaos in the world. An obstructed Dao heart could potentially affect cultivation, which was unacceptable. Have you heard of never forget each other? Zuo Chen asked Zuo Chen. Zuo Chen shook his head. I've lived in this town for so many years. I've heard of Bei Kaodang for treating illnesses, and Zuxian Lao for cooking, but I've never heard of Wuxian Wang. Zuo Chen took out the relic again and called out to the monk, "Monk, do you know Wuxian Wang?" Zuo Chen's eyes widened when he saw the monk emerge from the relic. I really have heard of it. The monk scratched the back of his head. Back then, that traveling merchant from my village said he came from Wuxian Wang. The one who advised you to erect a Buddha statue? The monk nodded, then hesitated, but I didn't think he was a bad person. He only sold some small items in my village and then left. The monk certainly wouldn't lie about this, so Zuo Chen simply asked, "Monk, where do you live? Is it on the way? If it is, we'll go to your village." "It is on the way, but there are no living people left in my village. It's a dead village. Do you still want to go see it, Taoist? Let's go take a look. It won't take long." Zuo Chen looked at Zuo Chen, who nodded repeatedly. Everything is at the Taoist's discretion. The donkey cart adjusted its direction slightly and continued along the desolate road. Zuo Chen looked into the distance, his hand clutching the urn in his arms, and murmured to himself, "I'll take you home." Inside the great city of Shuzhou, the sounds of people bustled, and the roadsides were lively. There were people drinking and eating meat, storytelling, and opera troupes performing. Once the city gates were closed, the outside was a desolate wasteland littered with white bones, while inside, there was a dazzling display of lights and revelry. This was the residence of Prince Kang. Prince Kang was kind-hearted and couldn't bear to see the poor, so he gathered all the interesting and capable people, his retainers, and his concubines in the city. With wine, meat, and silver, it was like a paradise in Shuzhou. Inside a grand mansion in the city, a scholar-like man was writing calligraphy in the center of the main hall. 4 maids stood respectfully beside him, one ground the ink, one handed him the brush, one carried a basin of water to wipe his sweat, and another massaged his shoulders and back. The scholar, however, seemed obsessed with the calligraphy before him, ignoring the 4 maids. Suddenly, his brush paused, a drop of ink splashing onto the white paper, exploding with a soft crack like a black flower. The 4 maids, terrified, knelt on the ground, begging for mercy. The scholar ignored them. He raised an eyebrow slightly and asked in surprise, "Someone killed one of my concubines? Who has such power?" Chapter 48 The Grandmaster, please read on. When the scholar arrived at the gate of the courtyard, a sedan chair was already parked outside. Beside the chair stood 4 sturdy men, their upper bodies bare. The man on the left had his right shoulder slumped, and the man on the right had his left shoulder slumped. Their eyes were slightly vacant, as if they lacked a soul. His steward approached, carrying an iron box with 4 wooden sword hilts protruding from it. "Master, I've prepared your weapons." The steward placed the iron box on the sedan chair, then looked at the scholar and said, "Master, Prince Kang has summoned you to a banquet. He said he's just found some beautiful girls, along with fine wine and wild venison. Are you sure you're alright not to go?" "Of course not." The scholar got into the sedan chair and smiled. "I'm helping him plot for the throne. Now that I'm out handling things, he'll be too grateful to be angry." After speaking, he paused, then sighed, "But it's true. Prince Kang is petty and ambitious, prone to self-deprecation, and indeed slow to react when things happen. I have 3 brocade pouches here. Take these and give them to Prince Kang for me. If he encounters something he can't handle, just open them according to their color, blue, green, black, and act accordingly. He took 3 small pouches from his robes and handed them to the servant, then lowered the curtain of the sedan chair. Lift the sedan chair. 4 men immediately grabbed the wooden poles with both hands, placing them on their shoulders. The poles and the grooves on their shoulders fit perfectly, locking in place. They moved with the speed of the wind, steady and fast, their footsteps so fast that even a fast horse couldn't keep up. Before the steward could say anything more, the sedan chair had already disappeared. He could only stand there dumbfounded, holding the brocade pouch, and finally sighed deeply before heading towards the King Prince's mansion. After passing through several alleys, the steward finally arrived at the gate of the King Prince's mansion. The 2 guards at the gate, seeing that it was him, didn't stop him at all, but simply smiled and made way for him to enter. Once inside the mansion, he was greeted by a riot of sprinklers. The trees were in bloom, and all kinds of flowers were vying for attention. The maids throughout the King Prince's mansion were all dressed in light, soft gauze that revealed large areas of skin, carrying dishes of all kinds of rare delicacies, including vegetable soup made from the freshest vegetable sprouts, raw venison slices, and small wine jugs, and countless other dishes. They hurried towards the central hall. The steward glanced at the maid a few more times. He always made sure to take a good look at her whenever he came. Then, suppressing his curiosity, he quickly followed them into the main hall. Stepping inside, he saw a fat man sitting in the center, shirtless and covered in greasy flesh. He was about 2 meters tall and 2 meters wide, resembling a round ball, his head and intestines bulging. He held a beautiful concubine on each side, almost completely naked, yet strikingly beautiful, almost impossible to look away from. 9 neatly arranged plates were laid out before this obese man, containing meat, soup, vegetables, rice, and wine. He took a bite of one dish, then another, savoring each bite with an oily sheen. Once he finished one dish, the maids immediately removed the empty plates and brought out a new batch. This man was none other than Prince Kang, the current warlord who ruled over Xuzhou. As King Kang was drinking, he noticed his steward had arrived at the palace. Seeing that he was alone, his brows furrowed slightly. Master isn't here? My master said he had business to attend to, so he left in his sedan chair, the steward replied respectfully. King Kang's fat face shifted several times upon hearing the steward's words, but he said nothing. King Kang had many retainers, each with their own unique skills. Some were adept at killing, others at strategizing for the world. Their roles were clearly defined, and their plans were well defined. The only exception was the master. His abilities were immense, as high as a mountain. He could perform rituals, kill invisibly, and most importantly, he could also scheme for the world. King Kang still remembered the master telling him, "King Kang, Xuzhou has many people, but many are simply content with their own little world, offering no help to your conquest of the world. I have a way to make them gather firewood to fuel your fire." At that moment, King Kang knew that the scholar must be a prodigy, so he appointed him master, keeping him by his side to offer advice and strategies. But capable people often have their own quirks. The master strategist was constantly running off, supposedly to help Prince Kang plan for the future, but it was hard to tell what he was really thinking. "Master strategist, is there anything else you want to say to me?" Prince Kang asked again. This time, the steward hurriedly relayed everything his master had said before leaving. 3 brocade pouches? How mysterious. Prince Kang beckoned, "Bring them here." The steward immediately brought the pouches. Prince Kang held them in his hands, examined them, and squeezed them slightly, thinking they were full of slips of paper. He was about to open them, but then put his hand down. Prince Kang had heard storytellers say that the ingenious plans inside such pouches were useless unless viewed at a crucial moment. Opening them would probably only reveal some strange nonsense that he couldn't understand anyway, so why bother thinking about it? So he summoned one of his advisors, tossed him the brocade pouch, and said, "Take good care of this. If anything goes wrong, open it one by one and execute the plan accordingly. If anything goes wrong and it doesn't align with the Grand Master's plan, I'll hold you responsible." The advisor broke out in a cold sweat, quickly nodded in agreement, and accepted the pouch. After the advisor had walked away, Prince Kang casually gestured to a maid, "Go and keep the Grand Master company, this steward." The maid immediately smiled and agreed, then swayed towards the steward. The steward's eyes widened. He wore a humble yet rude smile as he pulled the maid into his arms. Such a good thing could happen at Prince Kang's residence, He couldn't understand why the Grandmaster would choose to suffer outside the city. The 4 strong men ran like the wind, even faster than a steed. If you lifted their thighs, you could see that the 8 legs of these 4 men were stitched up at the base, as if they had been severed at the base and then sewn on with 8 superhuman, swift legs. They ran for a day and a night, finally reaching a wasteland. Upon arriving, the strong men stopped, placed the sedan chair on the ground, and lifted the curtain, allowing the scholar to step down. He came to the only patch of white in the wasteland and lowered his head. On the ground lay Bai Fenglin's corpse. It was starting to stink. What a pity, such a fine body wasn't even cherished. Even if you had captured it to play with, I could at least use it after bringing it back, the scholar said, reaching out and patting Bai Fenglin's head. Then, he exclaimed in surprise. 2 of Bai Fenglin's 3 souls and 7 spirits had been shattered, leaving only a tiny remnant. His soul-searching technique could only barely see what Bai Fenglin had last seen. After staring for a few seconds, he suddenly smiled. A Taoist priest and a woman. Hell, just like what Chang Zuodao said back then. The scholar stood up, took out a paper kite from his robes, wrote a few words on it, and then threw it away. The kite flew further and further away. Let Chang Zuodao test this Taoist priest's skills first. Grandpas, please vote and read on. I'll kowtow to you 2 more times. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 The Ghostwriter. Chang Henjiang wandered around Qingzhou City for 3 days without finding a single clue. When he arrived in Qingzhou City, the city had indeed changed. The local tyrant, formerly known as the Bailao Wei, had been eliminated by a group of wealthy merchants who had supported the Zhangjiu escort agency as the new head of the organization. Chang Henjiang avoided contact with him. After all, he was a lackey of Prince Kang. Killing monks on the Qingzhou border was one thing, but engaging with the local tyrants within the city and causing deaths could easily attract the attention of Prince Shou's men. Before he came, he had heard from his grandmaster that the Zhao family had found a treasured sword worthy of being listed on the divine weapon ranking and presented it to Prince Shou. Prince Shou was overjoyed and ordered his general to wield the sword and fight a martial arts practitioner who possessed a spear ranked at the bottom of the divine weapon ranking. The result? In just one exchange, the martial arts practitioner's spear was cleaved in 2. It should be noted that weapons on the divine weapon ranking were crafted by skilled artisans, requiring immense effort and a great deal of luck. Such a treasure, crafted in this way, would be as easy as cutting through mud for ordinary iron. But in all the long history of warfare, where has anyone ever heard of a weapon on the divine weapon ranking being destroyed? Even the lowest ranked divine weapon is still a divine weapon. The breaking of the spear caused a great stir among martial artists, swordsmiths, and soldiers. Everyone said the top spot on the divine weapon ranking was about to change hands, and Prince Shou was overjoyed, bestowing the name Heaven-Severing Blade upon it and assigning it to one of his generals. Chang Henjiang prided himself on his exceptional skills, believing he could hold his own even against regular generals. His only problem was that his blade was merely ordinary iron. Its only outstanding feature was its ferocity from countless kills, enough to ward off gods and ghosts. If you were to encounter the Heaven-Severing Blade on the divine weapon ranking, a single strike would likely sever him and the blade. Chang Henjiang valued his life, so he decided to avoid Prince Shou's men. Today, he stopped at a tea house outside the city for tea, his knife lying beside it. The waiter, timid and hesitant, dared not approach him to ask for payment. Chang Henjiang was also troubled. He had come out and accomplished nothing. If he returned like this, even if Prince Kang said nothing, the other retainers would probably laugh at his poor knife handling. Just as he was sighing, he suddenly saw a small white dot flying in the distance. He reached out and caught it, and a paper kite landed on his fingertip. The kite's beak gently nodded, as if it were preening its own fur, seemingly alive. Chang Henjiang immediately perked up. This lifelike kite was clearly the work of the Grandmaster. If there was anyone in Prince Kang's mansion, besides Prince Kang himself, whom Chang Henjiang respected the most, it would undoubtedly be the Grandmaster. He had fought the Grandmaster before, and his own killing skills couldn't withstand more than 3 moves from him. The Grandmaster had only used one of the 4 swords in his iron box to utterly defeat him, demonstrating extraordinary strength. From then on, Whatever the master asked him to do, he would do without complaint. Unfurling the kite. Chang Henjiang read the words on it. After a couple of seconds, he suddenly slammed his fist on the table. Damn it, the Taoist priest and the woman ran off to Xuzhou. I made a wasted trip. Without saying much, he walked straight out of the tea house, mounted his horse, cracked the whip, and galloped off along the path towards Xuzhou. The waiter in the tea house came out and, seeing the fierce man gone, sighed. He hadn't taken the money, but at least he'd sent this vicious family away. He just wondered what he was rushing off to. Chang Henjiang rode incredibly fast. By the time the horse reached the border, its belly was almost bruised. The border soldiers, seeing Chang Henjiang approach, immediately remembered this ruthless man who had charged into the pass with a token. Most of them could tell he seemed to be planning to leave, so they didn't bother with him anymore. But he dismounted and went straight to the military stables. He pulled a gold ingot from his pocket, threw it in front of the stableman, led out a horse, mounted it, cracked the whip, and rode off. Only after he was far away did a few soldiers approach the stableman. Is it alright if we just let him go like this? A young soldier asked, scratching his head. An older soldier chuckled, snatched the gold from the stableman, and weighed it in his hand. Our general hasn't returned yet, he's drinking and eating with the prince. With him not here, who comes in and who goes out is entirely up to us. Besides, he's already given us gold, consider it payment for the journey and the horse. Why worry about it? The young soldier muttered, feeling something was amiss, but seeing that no one seemed interested in discussing the matter, he shut his mouth and remained silent. Meanwhile, Chang Henjiang, upon entering Xuzhou territory, saw two distinct cart tracks on the ground, preceded by numerous donkey hoofprints, indicating he was on the right track. In Xuzhou now, where could anyone afford donkeys and horses? All the animals that could run had long been eaten. These must be outsiders. Judging by their slow pace, he could catch them. Chang Henjiang laughed 3 times, then spurred his horse into a gallop. The monk said his original village wasn't far, so the donkey cart headed in the direction the monk indicated. It wasn't too far. After a leisurely half-day journey, they arrived at the monk's village at midday. The village was situated in a depression. To reach it, one had to climb a slope. After the donkey laboriously pulled everyone up the slope, looking down, one could see the long-decayed village. Even with its ruins, it was considerably larger than the former Wangjia village, with a wooden fence surrounding the village and neatly arranged roads inside. Only the fertile fields were blackened, emanating a miasma. Our village was badly afflicted by wolves before. Many of our livestock were eaten, so we gathered some skilled men to build a fence. Later, we killed the alpha wolf with a bow, and that finally stopped. Unfortunately, after the disaster, even wolves are nowhere to be found. Otherwise, the village could have prepared some cured meat, the monk explained, his voice filled with sighs. Listening to the monk's explanation, Zuo Chen suddenly exclaimed in surprise. Monk, are you the benevolent master from Tulang village? Huh? The monk scratched his bald head. It seems someone did call me benevolent master when they asked for my help. It really is you. Zuo Chen exclaimed happily. You're very famous in our area. Everyone in town says you're a great philanthropist, capable and skilled. Whenever someone asks for your help, you can always solve their problem. I don't have that many supernatural powers, the monk waved his hands repeatedly. I only help people to the best of my ability. After asking this question, Zuo Chen noticed the monk's expression and asked with some confusion, how did you end up inside a small elixir? That's a long story. The group chatted for a while, and the donkey cart descended into the village. When they reached the gate, they saw that it was broken and covered in debris. Zuo Chen heard what had happened to the monk and sighed repeatedly, cursing the heavens for being blind, that the great philanthropist had been eaten by a bear. Monk, where's your temple? Once they reached the village, Zuo Chen asked. The monk pointed in a direction, and following that direction, they saw a rustic-looking house halfway up a slope. Zuo Chen narrowed his eyes. He could see ghostly energy in the temple. Please, everyone, keep reading and vote. I'll kowtow to you both. Chapter 50 The Evil Buddha. Since arriving in this world, Zuo Chen had seen both innate ghostly energy and cultivated ghostly qi, the two being worlds apart. The former was accumulated from the deaths of many people, the traces left by the departing souls, appearing as wisps of black in Zuo Chen's eyes, much like the scene he first witnessed in the ghost village. The latter, on the other hand, was accumulated from the misfortunes and calamities committed by some, the stuff of ghost cultivators who had harmed others. To Zuo Chen, it seemed foul and disgusting, incompatible with the innate spiritual qi within his body. After entering Xuzhou, Zuo Chen saw the ground covered in ghostly qi, knowing that this area had been tampered with. Originally, Zuo Chen thought that arriving in the monk's village would allow him to see the temple's radiant merit, sweeping away the surrounding evil ghostly qi, but unexpectedly, the place with the strongest ghostly qi in the entire village was actually the temple. Zuo Chen picked up the relic and stared at the monk. Then he looked up at the temple. The monk was full of merit, while the temple was filled with ghostly qi. Strange. Monk, are you sure the Buddha statue in your temple is yours? Yes. The monk was puzzled. The carpenter at the time sculpted it based on my face, it looks just like me. Zuo Chen was silent for a few seconds, then simply infused the monk with some spiritual energy, twisted the relic, and let the monk see it for himself. The monk stared at the temple and exclaimed, "Hey! Good heavens! There's something dirty in my house. It's all dark. That's ghost energy. Generally, it's either from a butcher's execution ground, or a dungeon where corpses are piled up, or someone deliberately poisoned it with some wicked formula," Zuo Chen explained. "My house doesn't do that kind of thing." The monk glared, clearly enraged. "I've helped so many people, and not a single one has died there. How can there be such disgusting black smoke hanging over me?" "Then someone must have tampered with it," Zuo Chen said. "Let's go take a look." The group arrived at the gate, where the donkey was tied up again. This time, it seemed used to it, not even whimpering, just resting on its back. After entering the village, the surroundings were desolate. The soil on the ground had been turned upside down, and not a single blade of grass could be seen. It had probably all been eaten. After walking a few more steps, they saw a small hillside with several deep pits dug into it, but the soil inside was nowhere to be seen. It seemed that someone had eaten it all. Following the path, they finally reached the entrance of the hillside temple. While other places were dilapidated, this place was very clean, with no clutter and nothing broken, except for a thick layer of dust, indicating that no one had been here for a long time. Pushing open the door, one could see that this place was completely different from ordinary temples. There was no place for chanting Buddhist prayers, only a large hall, next to which was a kitchen, and next to that, a storeroom. Behind these three rooms, the ground was neatly cultivated, farmland. The land was naturally overgrown, somewhat dry, the soil neither black nor fertile. A look of nostalgia appeared in the eyes of the monk inside the relic. He and the villagers had once shared their meals in this very courtyard. Now, however, he couldn't bear to see anyone. But immediately, the monk frowned again. Looking up at the hall before him, the wooden door of the hall was tightly closed, emanating a dark, foul aura. He hadn't quite understood what the Taoist priest had explained to him earlier, only knowing that the black substance emanating from it was bad, a calamity, something only ruthless, bloodthirsty villains would enjoy. But he felt wronged. He had helped so many people. How could his usual place be like this? Inside the hall, there should only be a bed, a table, a chair, and his enormous statue. He used to rest there, with lamps lit to illuminate the surroundings. Later, when more refugees arrived, they were allowed to live there as well. Many beddings were laid out on the floor, and when they left, the villagers took the bedding with them, saying they wouldn't feel at ease sleeping in their new places without their own beds. So what would the hall look like now? Still just a bed, a table, a chair, and a statue? Zuo Chen reached the door and pushed it open with one hand. Creak. The sound of the wooden door scraping against the floor filled the air, and sunlight streaming in from the sky flooded the hall. Before their eyes was a large Buddha statue. The Buddha's face was serene, indeed exactly like a monk, sitting cross-legged on a lotus platform. However, a crack ran down the middle of the Buddha, from which blood gushed. The blood soaked the floor, resembling a pool of crimson blood, while lotus flowers bloomed on either side. The lotus flower was a terrifying red, brimming with ghostly energy, a rare and precious treasure. Yet, it was a treasure meant to kill. What is this? My house isn't like this. The monk stared dumbfounded at the sight before him. Inside the relic, he seemed to smell an unbearable stench, suddenly arching his back and retching. The two little children hidden in Zuo Chen's sleeve also scurried deeper into the sleeve, crying out, "It stinks! It stinks," as if afraid of being touched by the terrifying energy. "Master, what is this?" Zuo Chen was dumbfounded. How could the temple of the renowned benevolent monk have become like this? Zuo Chen remained silent, his face grim. He slowly walked forward, the blood pool on the ground seemingly fearing him, naturally parting to make way for him. He took 2 or 3 steps to the Buddha statue, staring at the crack. It was filled with flesh and blood, pulsating and growing. Zuo Chen gently tapped the Buddha statue, and suddenly, a series of ghostly wails and howls emanated from within. A vast number of vengeful spirits, all only upper bodies, men and women, young and old, squeezed out through the cracks in the statue. Their lower bodies were embedded within, crushed into pulpy mass of flesh. Their eyes had been gouged out, and bloody tears flowed downwards from them. The pool of blood on the ground seemed to be formed from these tears. It hurts so much. Master, where are you? Master, where are you? Save us. Save us. The spirits, unable to see, could only cry out in desperation, as if suffering immense torment. Upon seeing these surging, wronged souls, the monk's eyes widened, and he trembled as if struck by lightning. Old Zhang? Granny Wang? And that silly boy from the Liu family next door? How did you all get here? Upon hearing the monk's voice, the spirits cried out even more mournfully, Master, Master, you're back. Master, save us. Master, we're in pain, Master. Hearing their cries, the monk panicked and reached out to grab them. Don't move. Zuo Chen stopped him immediately. Their lower body souls were crushed and tangled together, now stuck inside your Buddha statue. Your merit power is too strong. If you try to grab them, you'll only shatter their souls. The monk immediately stopped, looking at Zuo Chen with a blank and sorrowful expression. Taoist master, what should I do? Zuo Chen didn't speak, but his face was grim. The Taoist scriptures didn't record any supernatural powers targeting souls. Zuo Chen had studied them for a long time before barely mastering some techniques for controlling souls. He didn't know any of the more advanced methods of saving or healing souls. These souls were like people, easy to kill, difficult to bring back to life. Kai, standing beside him, was also anxious, but she was trained in tricks and magic, and in this situation, she had no ideas whatsoever. Suddenly, Kai saw thunderclouds gathering in the sky, with lightning flashing across the heavens. She suddenly felt her internal energy being mobilized. This. Kai abruptly looked at Zuo Chen. She found Zuo Chen's face grim. He was truly enraged. Cheng Henjiang rode his fast horse, following the cart tracks, and soon saw a deserted village in the distance. When he reached the village entrance, he dismounted. The horse was exhausted, foaming at the mouth, and collapsed dead on the ground. Useless beast, Cheng Henjiang cursed, but he immediately saw the donkey cart in the distance, knowing he had caught up. After killing the people, he would take the donkey and head straight back to Suzhou City for donkey meat sandwiches. Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind blowing around him. Looking up, he saw that it was getting dark and rainy. Cheng Henjiang sneered. Perfect timing, the dark clouds were perfect for killing. They're just unlucky. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.